Northern and western Scotland will continue to see some heavy showers during the rest of the afternoon, even some hail and thunder. Elsewhere, the weather tending to settle down at last, plenty of sunshine and skies clearing widely as we end the afternoon with just those showers continuing across the north and west of Scotland. They will persist in a few spots overnight, mostly around coasts of northern western Scotland, but otherwise widespread clear skies across the rest of Scotland. Northern Ireland seeing clearing skies, and for much of England and Wales, once we lose this system that's bringing the cloud and a strong wind, as well as some patchy rain to the east, it's going to be a clear night. So widespread clear skies overnight, relatively clear air as well, and so not much fog forming, although there will be a few mist patches, particularly for the West Midlands, northwest England. And there'll be, again, some showers and a keen breeze in the far northwest. That's where it's going to stay frost-free. Otherwise, a widespread frost to wake up to on Friday, a chilly start. Temperatures down to -3, -4, -5 in some of the most sheltered spots. Otherwise, generally -2 up to +2 first thing. But despite the chill, actually plenty of bright weather around. Any early mist tending to lift by mid-morning, and then sunny spells for the vast majority. A bit more cloud into the far northwest later, as well as a keen breeze. But for most, it's a decent day.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, it's a nice sculpture of an older man living in poverty, and it's been unveiled at the Tate Modern. But this is for an issue that I know basically all of our viewers and listeners, and ourselves included, really do care about.
Yeah, the activity was organised by the charity Independent Age, and it's to raise awareness of the dire financial struggles facing some older people.
Rob Trueheller is a 68-year-old pensioner who the ice sculpture depicts. Now, he's had his winter fuel payment cut off following Labour's tax raid.
Yes, and taxi driver Rob Trueheller joins us now alongside the Head of Policy and Influencing at Independent Age, Morgan Vine. Welcome both. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Start with you, Rob. I mean, what does this sculpture mean to you then?
Well, it's there to... it's a focal point for people to look at and to understand that there's a lot of pensioners in poverty. You know, the winter fuel allowance, which was a mere spit in the ocean, really, £250 for each person, makes a heck of a difference when, you know, electricity prices, etc., are going up.
Talk to me about how this idea came about then, and what Independent Age does.
So Independent Age is a national charity, and we provide free independent support to older people living on a low income. We try and make sure that they're getting all of the money they're entitled to. And we also use the evidence that comes through our services and through the grants that we give out to try and work out some of the systemic problems. And one of those is that older people just don't have enough money to live on. As Rob said, they're not receiving the money they're entitled to, many of them. But even for those people that are receiving that money, it's often not enough to live on. So we think that there's more that the UK government and companies and others can do to try and improve the situation.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Keir Starmer is set to meet US President Donald Trump today, and the PM is expected to talk tough on Ukraine, but with Donald Trump holding all of the cards on Ukraine, on trade tariffs, on the Chagos Islands and many, many other topics. Can Keir Starmer come away with anything other than a bag of duty-frees? And every political party since 2010 promised to lower immigration. They all failed. And new figures out today show a record 110,000 claimed asylum in 2024, and that's double the amount in 2021. Is this final proof that the lunatics have taken over the asylum system? And shamed former Labour MP Mike Amesbury, who was jailed for 10 weeks for repeatedly punching a constituent, he's had his jail sentence suspended. Is this yet more evidence of two-tier justice? And a fundraiser has been launched to help an 81-year-old SAS hero to pay for his care home costs as he now has dementia. Tagavasi helped storm the Iranian embassy in 1980 and is even a Distinguished Conduct Medal recipient. On today's show, I'll be joined by Tak's wife and the SAS veteran and colleague who started this majestic appeal. That's all coming in your next hour. Well, to the show, it's a pleasure to have your company. So Keir Starmer has talked tough all the way to DC. The US must give a backstop on Ukraine, is expected to say, but will Donald Trump listen? That astonishing press conference yesterday of Trump setting out his cabinet vision said quite simply, we are the pot of gold. We will go cold turkey on any country who defies us. We'll be live in DC shortly, but first, here's your headlines, and it's Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. It's just gone 3 o'clock. These are your headlines. Former Labour MP Mark Amesbury has had his 10-week prison sentence for assault suspended for 2 years following an appeal at Chester Crown Court. Mr Amesbury had appealed his 10-week prison sentence for punching a man to the ground. He pleaded guilty last month to assaulting 45-year-old Paul Fellows following a row in a street in Cheshire in October of last year. He's been ordered to carry out 200 hours of unpaid work, undertake alcohol monitoring, an anger management course, and carry out 20 days of rehabilitation work. The number of people claiming asylum in the UK has reached its highest level since records began in 1979. That's according to figures released by the Home Office today. Just over 108,000 people applied for asylum in the UK in 2024, the highest number for any 12-month period since current records began in 2001. The number is up 18% from almost 92,000 in 2023. Migrants who arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in small boats accounted for 32% of the total number of people claiming asylum last year. Pakistani was the most common nationality among asylum applications. In other news, US President Donald Trump says it's up to Europe to provide security guarantees for Ukraine, and there will be no guarantees of Washington's involvement. Ukraine's President Zelensky is due to meet the US President to sign a deal tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is in Washington, where he'll meet Mr Trump later today. Speaking to reporters last night, Sir Keir Starmer dismissed growing tensions between the US and Europe, insisting the special relationship must go from strength to strength. Elsewhere, Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan have left Romania on a private jet headed to Florida in the US. That's according to sources. It's after prosecutors lifted a travel ban. It's understood the internet personality will return to Romania towards the end of March to fulfill judicial control obligations. The Trump administration reportedly pressed the Romanian government to lift travel restrictions on the brothers earlier this month. The controversial influencer and his sibling are facing a series of criminal charges in the country, which they both strongly deny. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
Thank you, Sophia. Beautiful start to the show. Now, Sir Keir Starmer is set to meet Donald Trump today in Washington, D.C. The PM is expected to talk tough on Ukraine, but with Donald Trump holding all of the cards on Ukraine, on trade tariffs, on the Chagos Islands, in fact, on every single factor, can Sir Keir Starmer really come out on top against the Don? Well, let's cross now to Washington, D.C. and speak to our political editor stateside. It's Christopher Hope. Chris, a pleasure to have you on the show. I know you need to get on that bus there to get to the White House pretty sharpish, so I'm going to grab you while I can. So the rhetoric is high. The chest is puffed out, expected to talk tough on Ukraine. But let's be absolutely frank, that press conference yesterday with the cabinet, they are in no mood to compromise. We are the pot of gold. We'll go cold turkey on any nation that defies us. I think that Sir Keir Starmer will be lucky to come away from DC with a bag of duty-free.
That's one way of looking at it, Martin, and welcome to Washington, D.C., where within a couple of hours' time, the PM will be going into the Oval Office to have a sit-down in front of the world's press for 5 minutes with President Donald Trump, then lunch at 5:35 your time, and then the press conference in prime time, GB News, 7 p.m. Tune in. It'll be quite a moment. I think there's all to play for. There are three things they'll be talking about today. One will be Ukraine. The deal to hand over some mineral rights to America should be signed here in Washington, D.C. tomorrow with President Zelensky and Trump. And if that happens, the hope from the UK side is it'll give the US a reason to guarantee the independence of Ukraine after a peace deal is signed. So what is happening here is the UK want, if possible, the US to guarantee some form of air cover, some form of ensuring that if Putin comes again, as we were told that might happen by the PM Sir Keir Starmer last night on the flight over, then the US might intervene. And then it's of course up to the European nations to step up, provide their own security force in Ukraine to enforce that peace. And that's why we're seeing on Sunday a meeting of European leaders with Zelensky in London. So it's all happening very quickly, and it may be this war, the bloodshed, is coming to an end. But on the US terms, they want to guarantee some mineral rights for the US as a price of that deal being agreed. So other issues, I mean, the Chagos Islands, I've got to say to you, Martin, I understand it hasn't been raised at all with anyone in the US Embassy in the past 3 weeks. A big party last night in the Embassy. I went straight from the plane with the Prime Minister to that party. It's not being talked about by anybody. I know it's a big issue on the right of politics where we are in the UK, and the left of politics. Why are we spending maybe £18 billion to hand over our sovereign territory to Mauritius? It hasn't yet touched the sides in terms of the Trump administration, but that might all change in the Oval Office and the press conference tonight. And just finally, what they want to talk about is more cooperation on big tech, AI, working together to try and bring the UK and US together on developing what could be the next almost industrial revolution in terms of how AI will transform our lives. So those three areas, I think, will come up over lunch later with the PM and the President Trump. But as you know, with Trump, Martin, anything can happen. What I want to know, though, is what you would ask him.
I would ask him about free speech, because when you say cooperation on big tech, what that means is stop censoring people who use it and stop enforcing heavy taxes on US big tech providers. You know, if free speech is paramount, which it is, then I think Keir Starmer will have to do some rowing back. And I wonder if Keir Starmer will be grateful that we did Brexit, because war has been declared, trade war has been declared on the European Union. We could be in line for £24 billion worth of trade tariffs if we were in alignment with the European Union.
Well, you're totally right. Tariffs is something we haven't mentioned yet. Now, Trump has said he wants to slap 25% tariffs on imports of European cars and other things. But that's the EU, not the UK. What that means is that cars made in the European Union will cost 25% more in America, and that could mean sales fall and could have an impact on the profitability of those companies and maybe even employing workers in Europe. That's why it matters so much, tariffs. But the UK is different. The UK is a balanced trading arrangement. And last night it was made clear by Peter Mandelson, who was the ambassador to the US for the UK. He said that we have a fantastically fair and balanced trading relationship and that we reciprocate so much. he said just a small thing for you to remember over the coming weeks. Clearly the UK thinks that outside the European Union, tariffs won't affect us, and that could give us a trading advantage against the EU. If UK goods are a quarter cheaper, like cars, than European-made vehicles, it may support jobs in the UK, and that's to be welcome. So can, as I've been saying for a while, can Keir Starmer grip the advantages of Brexit, stop seeing it as a problem, but see it as a solution to some of our economic needs? Let's see.
Okay, Chris Owen, now you have to get on that bus, don't you, in about 2 minutes' time. Have I got time for one more question, or do you have to go?
Yep.
Okay, I'll fire a question at you now. What does victory look like for Britain? Can the special relationship survive? Does it even mean anything anymore? We have a president, probably the most America-first US president in history. Does he even care about Britain anymore?
The answer to that is he really cares about Britain. His mother is from the Isle of Lewis in Scotland. He loves the royal family. He likes Prince William, the next King of England. I'm not sure how he knows the King, but he's better knows Prince William. You know, the RPM isn't French. He's not theatrical. He won't grab knees like we saw President Macron grab President Trump's knee in the Oval Office on Monday. There's no pretensions with him. I think Donald Trump gets that. It is quite common for a Republican president to like a Labour Prime Minister. We saw that between Bush and Blair. The special relationship goes much deeper than two people. It's information sharing, it's intelligence sharing, it's common cultures, it's everything. It goes far deeper than whether the two top people get on. I think what they want here is that we want to walk away from here as a country, I think, with a guarantee that the US will enforce and be a backstop for that peace deal in Ukraine to stop the bloodshed. It all goes back to the basics here. Trump wants to end the killing. The border hasn't changed for the frontline border. The frontline fighting hasn't changed in Ukraine for a year. It's time to end the killing. And if you start, that's where I think everyone starts from. But what is the price, and will Ukraine support that when Zelensky comes tomorrow? But just finally, what is happening here is this PM, 7 months into his time in office, is writing his legacy in real time. We think back to Blair in Bosnia, Blair in the Iraq War, where David Cameron had other European international forays. This is what he'll remembered for. If he can help be a broker for this peace deal, play a role in that, and even the Chagos Islands, these are the things we shall be remembered for 7 months into his time in office. And it does pass very quickly as Prime Minister. So his legacy is being written right now, Martin.
Okay, Chris, get on that bus there to the White House. And you asked the question for GB News last time, this time far away. And my question would be, who would you like to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom? Not the one who's currently there, perhaps. Chris Hope, always a pleasure. I'll speak to you later on from the White House. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you. Now let's get the thoughts now. The former chair of the Defence Committee, Tobias Ellwood. Tobias, welcome to the show. Always an absolute pleasure to have your esteemed company. What are you hoping that comes out of today's historic meeting? You've been a passionate defender and supporter of Ukraine all along. What does a victory for Ukraine and for the United Kingdom look like to you today?
Yeah, well, good afternoon. These are the very big questions. I think, first of all, and you were just touching on there with Chris, this is the first formal bilateral. The two leaders are coming together. There's already a good rapport that's been struck. I think that's important for Britain. Britain and the United States, you know, the US is our closest security ally. It's important they get off to a good start. The increase in UK defence spend, I think, will go down very well. Donald Trump has been calling for that, even in Trump 1.0, and some of us agree that should have happened a while back. So that's good news. But once the niceties are out the way, as your question implies, it's down to the business. On top of the agenda will be what next for Ukraine and what next for the transatlantic relationship. And I think this is where there are some big questions to be asked, because there is some puzzlement and scratching of heads as to why the United States chose to meet with Russia alone without Ukraine. Why Trump is calling the Ukraine president a dictator, but not Putin. Why Trump's cabinet now seems to be saying Ukraine started the war. And the most puzzling one for me, which is, why did America vote with Russia, vote with Belarus, vote with North Korea? These are the details that I think we need to see their prime minister look the president in the eye, saying, where is this all going? Is this all a big, clever plan that's going to lead to some fundamental peace deal? Or is it a seismic change in the US-European relationship, which will be a wake-up call to a more transactional approach, ending any sense of duty, if you like, to support the ailing international rules-based order? Either way, it's going to be different than it has been over the last couple of decades.
Well, Tobias, perhaps it's flattery, perhaps it's brinksmanship, perhaps it's trying to get some way forward towards a deal which hasn't come anywhere nearer in the past 3 years. Yesterday, he was calling Vladimir Putin very smart and very cunning. Perhaps you have to flatter him to get his attention. And more to the point, hasn't this entire process proven that European leaders, including the United Kingdom, including the entire European Union, are utterly irrelevant? The deal is being done without any of those people at the table. Trump has gone direct to Putin. He's achieved something, whether you like the terms, we don't know those terms yet, that has not been achieved in these past 3 years. Maybe the seismic change is the European Union, the United Kingdom, don't really have much place on the world stage anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you make some really important points there, but unpick that a little bit. And, you know, he made a deal with the Taliban in Doha in 2020, excluding the Afghan government, excluding Europe, and look where that went. Here he is again, now making a deal with our arch enemy in Europe, the dictator, without Ukraine there. And that's my concern here as to where this is all going, where there is a seismic change taking place, because it's not allowing us to utilize that special relationship to be able to whisper in the president's ear and say, look, if you don't put this fire out, if you allow Putin to rearm and regroup, to take away a bit of Ukraine, Putin wants the rest of it. He doesn't see Ukraine as a nation. And if you don't allow us to conclude that...
Hang on. Donald Trump said last night very clearly that Putin would have taken all of Ukraine if he hadn't been elected as president. And now that there may have to be some sacrifice of terrain. And actually, that seems to be a position which the Ukrainians themselves, or perhaps reluctantly, very reluctantly admitting, may have to happen to break this status quo. The position appears to be the entire country could have been taken without me. So perhaps a small portion of it being given away might be the only grisly way to reach peace.
Right. Well, you sort of actually make my point for me, because what you're suggesting there is that we appease the dictator. We allow the bully to win. And when bullies...
How do you take that territory back? How's that going to happen?
Let me finish my question, and then I'll come to that, because it's important. It's so nuanced, this. You can't simply deal it within banner headlines. You know, the reality for Europe and Britain at the moment is that if you allow Putin to walk away with any part of Ukraine and give them space to rearm, regroup, for Putin to claim some form of victory back in Russia, he will do it again. We have a bigger conflict coming over the hill if that is the lay of the land. So the question for Europe is, can we persuade Donald Trump to say it's not in his interests for us to be distracted by a conflict there, particularly is that he might want some support in dealing with China in the longer term. But if we're distracted because of war in Europe, because of Putin, then we won't be able to do that. If it's the case, and I'm afraid it might be, that Donald Trump says, right, security-wise, I'm dialing back from Europe, you're on your own. Then that's the point that you're making. We need some serious Churchillian leadership to galvanize together, lean into Ukraine and say, actually, if you removed all the daft caveats that we placed on weapon systems, if we got the kit in there, they could easily push Russia back. It's not, these soldiers are not 10 foot tall.
Tobias, we have to leave it there, but perhaps the over-reliance on the USA for decades and decades and decades and refusing to pay our own way in Europe left us in this perilous position. And now, once again, we're reliant on the USA. And Donald Trump might say, well, look, you should have coughed up all along and you didn't. And now you're on your own, lads. That's the brutal reality of the world. We have to leave it there. Tobias Ellwood, we simply ran out of time. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Now, moving on, the former Labour MP Mike Amesbury has had his 10-week prison sentence for assault suspended for 2 years following an appeal at Chester Crown Court. It's an astonishing situation, and joining me now to discuss it is GBNews' political correspondent Catherine Forster. Catherine, a lot of people are going to be looking at this today and saying it's democracy itself that's lying on the canvas today. This looks like two-tier justice.
Well, some people will say that, of course, but it's been very swiftly dealt with, hasn't it? And it looks like there's going to be a big by-election here, which potentially could be very, very good news indeed for reform. But just let's backtrack slightly. It was only on Monday that the former Labour MP, Mike Amesbury, was given that 10-week prison sentence. He spent 3 nights in HMP Alt Course. He was brought to Chester Crown Court today out of a prison van in handcuffs. But yes, he's now had that converted to a suspended sentence. He's got to do 200 hours of unpaid work, undertake a 120-day alcohol monitoring, anger management course, and also 20 days rehabilitation work. The judge said your behaviour as an MP was simply disgraceful, but they felt that there was a reasonable chance of him being rehabilitated, hence the suspended sentence. So, where does this leave us? Of course, Labour booted him out of the party very quickly. He's standing as an independent. Many calls for his resignation. That hasn't happened yet. But in any case, his constituents can get rid of him because there'll now be a recall petition triggered by that jail and then suspended sentence. If 10% of his constituents say they want a by-election, there will be a by-election. I think that's almost certainly going to happen. Reform are already doing the running on this already. And it could be very, very bad news for this new Labour government. Very bad news indeed, because only last July, Mike Amesbury won this seat with a big 14,000 majority and over half the vote. You might think that was pretty safe, but of course we've seen what's happened to Labour's poll ratings. They've plummeted, and we've seen what's happened to Reform's ratings. They were second. They now spy a real opportunity here. So let's see what happens. Nigel Farage was very cross about a number of local elections being cancelled, but this could be a big opportunity for reform.
You know, Catherine Forza, I think you're right. I'm starting to think there's no such thing as a safe seat in the United Kingdom. Thanks for joining us on today's show with that fantastic update on the situation around Mike Amesbury. Now, the number of people claiming asylum in the UK has hit, guess what? You've guessed it, a record high. I'll have the latest figures next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News and with Britain's News Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners on GB News, 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, 3 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the number of asylum applications in the United Kingdom have reached a record high. Just over 108,000 applications were made last year, and that's the highest number since current records began in 2001. It's Groundhog Day once again, and let's bring in our Homeland Security editor, Mark White. Mark, how many times have we said on this programme the lunatics have taken over the asylum system, and here we go again?
Yes, at 108,000 asylum applications last year eclipses the previous record of 2002, when 103,000 asylum applications were received. Now, the breakdown in terms of nationalities represented on these asylum applications probably are a bit of a surprise here, in that the biggest single nation represented is Pakistan, with some 10,542 people, or 9.7% of the total number of asylum applications coming from Pakistan. And people might quite rightly ask what the war that the people of Pakistan who are claiming asylum are fleeing. And of course we don't know that, and we don't know how credible at the end of the day those asylum claims will be. Another nation represented quite significantly, probably less of a surprise, is Afghanistan. They're also represented in terms of those crossing to the UK in small boats. They are the single biggest nation represented on small boats. But the Vietnamese number of asylum claims is another one, I think, that will raise an eyebrow or two. More than 4,000 of those asylum seekers claiming asylum are from Vietnam. And again, the same question that can be asked of those from Pakistan could be asked of those coming from Vietnam, a country that is not at war, that, OK, may have poverty in some parts of that country, but not necessarily a country that you would believe is uppermost in the sort of calculations when it comes to refugees.
Mark White, you're absolutely right. There is no war that warrants people fleeing in Pakistan or in Vietnam, or not one that we've heard of. Simply will seem to many, many people that the system is once again being gamed. Thank you very much, Mark White, for bringing us up to speed today on GB News. Appreciate it. Now, residents of the Essex village Wethersfield fear that they could soon be outnumbered by asylum seekers. And our GB News reporter, national reporter Charlie Peters is there on the ground. Charlie, it's an astonishing story. 705 people live there. 800 asylum seekers have suddenly been moved into an old RAF base. Locals are feeling justifiably overwhelmed. Tell us more.
Well, Martin, it could stretch up to 1,700 asylum seekers at this former US airbase, most recently used as a MOD police HQ. For a long time, there were just a couple of the cabins here being used by the so-called Mod Plod, but they've been out of here for a long time, and there's been a quiet community around here. That all changed a couple of years ago, when the first set of hundreds of asylum seekers arrived, as successive governments now really struggle to deal with the surge in small boats and the associated problems that we've had with asylum backlogs. And all of the stats you've just heard from our Home and Security editor, Mark White, and 108,000 asylum seekers They're being spread across the country, often in the north of England, but there are some pockets in the home counties. And here in Essex, this community, they say they have been overwhelmed by the very sudden overnight shift where their population has doubled, but all the people here are from overseas. And they stress to GB News today they don't know who they are. They've also expressed concerns that some of the people staying here could be failed asylum seekers. Now, I've seen footage from locals recorded on those doorbell cameras that so many people have, many people getting them in the last couple of years due to security concerns. And the footage does show young men leaving the gates behind me and just walking around this local area. And the people here have expressed concern because they just don't know who they are. They've seen reports across the country, as we all have, as we've reported on relentlessly at GB News, of issues of violence, of loitering, of littering, and of concerns about attitudes towards women and girls. And it's caused a complete change in the atmosphere of this small rural Essex community. One man we spoke to earlier, Jeff Timperley, said that he used to work as a bricklayer, but 2 years ago when this camp opened up, he stopped working in the day because he wanted to be around to look after and keep an eye on his wife and his teenage daughters in this area, not being sure about the many hundreds of people who were arriving unvetted and suddenly had freedom to roam around his previously very high trust, very tight-knit Essex community. And as I said, Martin, we're going to expect over 800 people living here now, so the population will double, and people like Jeff Timperley and the many other locals we spoke to today will be minorities in their own village due to an overnight change essentially brought about by issues with the failure to deal with the small boats crisis and the asylum backlog. Now, when I spoke to residents, if they had confidence in the current government's approach to border security commands, many of them said that regardless of the colour of the rosette on a politician's chest, they just didn't trust them at all. They had no hope in government to deal with this. And many were exasperated, not only due to the security issues, but also they've pointed to a report that locals paid for themselves, conducted by a local engineering firm, world-class engineering firm, which found that there are hazardous materials on this base. They say it's not safe for them, but also it's not safe for the migrants due to fuels and other hazardous materials being there. When the Home Office wanted to expand this base under a special development order, they were meant to respond to that evidence and produce their own. Locals here say they just haven't done that.
Charlie Peters, excellent summary for a community overwhelmed by asylum seekers. Who can blame the locals for feeling despondent towards politicians? Every political party since 2010 promised to get a grip on this, and all of them have completely failed. Thank you very much, Charlie Peters, there live from Wethersfield. Lots more still to come to it now, 4 o'clock, including that man, Gary Lineker, where he criticises the BBC for pulling a controversial pro-Hamas Gaza documentary. What planet's he on? But first, here's your news headlines with Sophia Wesler.
Martin, thank you. These are your headlines from the GB Newsroom. Former Labour MP Mike Amesbury has had his 10-week prison sentence for assault suspended for 2 years following an appeal at Chester Crown Court. Mr Amesbury had appealed his 10-week prison sentence for punching a man to the ground. He pleaded guilty last month to assaulting 45-year-old Paul Fellows following a row in a street in Cheshire in October of last year. He's been ordered to carry out 200 hours of unpaid work, undertake alcohol monitoring and anger management course, and carry out 20 days of rehabilitation work. The number of people claiming asylum in the UK has reached its highest level since records began in 1979. That's according to figures released by the Home Office today. Just over 108,000 people applied for asylum in the UK in 2024. The highest number for any 12-month period since current records began in 2001. The number is up 18% from almost 92,000 in 2023. Migrants who arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in small boats accounted for 32% of the total number of people claiming asylum. Pakistani was the most common nationality among asylum applicants. In other news, US President Donald Trump says it's up to Europe to provide security guarantees for Ukraine, and there will be no guarantees of Washington's involvement. Ukraine's President Zelensky is due to meet the US president to sign a deal tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is in Washington, where he'll meet Mr Trump later today. Speaking to reporters last night, Sir Keir Starmer dismissed growing tensions between the US and Europe, insisting the special relationship must go from strength to strength. And some breaking news. Gene Hackman's daughter thinks her father and his wife died from carbon monoxide poisoning. The Hollywood actor was found dead alongside his wife, Betsy Arakawa, at their home. A warning: the following contains flashing images. Police in Santa Fe say they were found at their home in New Mexico alongside their dog, adding there was no signs of foul play. Elizabeth Jean Hackman told TMZ that while they are not sure of the couple's cause of death, they think it could be due to inhaling toxic fumes. Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan say some of their seized assets have been returned to them by Romanian authorities, including properties and vehicles. It comes as the controversial brothers have left Romania on a private jet headed to Florida in the US. That's according to sources. It's after prosecutors lifted a travel ban. It's understood the internet personalities will return to Romania towards the end of March to fulfill judicial control obligations. The Trump administration reportedly pressed the Romanian government to lift travel restrictions on the brothers earlier this month. The controversial influencer and his sibling are facing a series of criminal charges in the country, which they both strongly deny. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Crash Law 24 sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2628 and €1.2128. The price of gold is £2,275 and 37 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,727 points.
Crash Law 24 sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Alan Wright. In Warwickshire, the M6 southbound is queuing after a multi-vehicle collision earlier between Junction 3 for Nuneaton and Junction 2 for Coventry and the M69. In Gloucestershire, the M5 southbound is partly blocked by a broken down lorry. That's at Junction 13 for Stroud and the A419 turn-off. In Hertfordshire, delays on the M25 clockwise in the roadworks between Junction 22 at St Albans and 23 for the A1M. And in Berkshire, the M4 westbound is partly blocked after a vehicle fire. That's between Junction 13 for Newbury and the A34 and Junction 14 for Hungerford and the A338.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, joining us in the studio now is Chia Eaglin and Erin Cobb from Clark's Farm Greyhound Rescue, who have brought along two very special guests. This is Duchess.
So Duchess is the one I'm stroking. This is Duchess, isn't it? Our lady joining us this morning, and then over there is Vieira.
Vieira's a chap, isn't he? And Duchess is a lady. So,
talk to us about their history. Now, they used to be racing dogs, didn't they? But now they're looking for a home.
Yeah, so both of these dogs were racing greyhounds. They have retired recently. So now we are getting them ready and prepared to go into a forever home, essentially.
So anyone watching, make sure you get on the Clark's Farm website later on today, because these guys are up for adoption. And I mean,
and they are very cute.
Look how well behaved they are as well. They were a little bit excited when they came in because it's their first time on TV and they wanted to make a good impression.
They did.
Now
they're both looking, aren't they? They know what's up on
yawning already.
Here. Now, talk to us about greyhounds as a breed. If anyone was going to adopt a greyhound, what would they expect?
I'd say the first thing is couch potatoes. They are the most lazy dog ever.
Really? You wouldn't expect that because of the background.
Everyone has this massive misconception that they need loads of exercise, loads of walks, but they are actually, you know, quite happy with 2 20-minute walks a day. They are
Really?
so like
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
Easy.
That's
as long as they're able to have their moments of madness, zoomies, you know, they
Just
do
still
get the
busy.
sillies, of course. But once they've had that, they are so happy to just chill out on the sofa with you. Usually,
they've all got different personalities. And it's just great to see, even though some of them...
Duchess is perched on the back of your head.
Duchess is going to fall asleep. You're on TV, Duchess.
She's watching.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 4 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Gary Lineker has criticised the BBC for pulling its controversial pro-Hamas Gaza documentary. The TV personality, alongside 500 other media professionals and lovies, hit out after its removal. The BBC apologised after it emerged that one of the children was found to be the son of a Hamas chief. Now, the Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy met with the BBC director and had this to say earlier.
No money paid has fallen into the hands of Hamas, and that the utmost care was taken to ensure that was the case. I expect to be kept informed about the findings of the internal BBC investigation, and I will be happy to update the honourable gentleman and colleagues across the House on its progress.
Let's now speak with the former BBC broadcaster, Danny Kelly. Well, Danny, great. Good news. No licence payers' money found its way to Hamas. Hallelujah. We should be grateful for that. And by the way, if you criticise this documentary, which featured the son of an Hamas operator, then according to this letter signed by Gary Lineker, then that's based on racist assumptions and the weaponisation of identity. What planet is Gary Lineker on?
The whole thing's mental. I've read that letter. I haven't seen the documentary because it's been lifted from the iPlayer, Martin. But after working for nearly 2 decades at the BBC, I can tell you there are 2 things that the BBC are loath to do. One is apologise, and the second one is actually to pull something from the iPlayer. So they've actually done both on this occasion. And Lineker, and it's the arrogance. I love Gary Lineker, the footballer. I'm an Everton fan. But I can't abide Gary Lineker, the political activist, on licence fee payers' cash. And bosses will be vindicated, Martin, that they haven't offered Lineker a new contract. Make no mistake, that wasn't Lineker's decision to step down at the beginning of May. That was the boss's decisions, because he was causing more harm to the future of the licence fee than any defund the BBC organisation. It's the arrogance, Martin. All the BBC are asking for is a period of time to actually just check, do due diligence, make sure no editorial guidelines were broken, make sure no palms were greased with the making of this documentary. That's all they've asked. They haven't said that they're going to pull it permanently. All they're saying is, listen, we just want to make sure that due diligence was carried through. That's all they're saying. Now, Lineker is way ahead of himself. It's the arrogance of the man and the 499 other media lovies. They should just take a step back and actually understand what the BBC is saying. Not often will I defend the BBC, Martin. All the BBC are doing is say, look, just take a moment. We just need to make sure we've done things right. And until we have that confirmation, we've pulled it. It's as simple as that.
And, you know, the campaign against anti-Semitism have said Gary Lineker is becoming the emblem of all that is wrong at the BBC. And furthermore, they're normally very straight-laced with their comments. But even they said today Gary Lineker should perhaps stick to football and crisps.
Yeah, that's right. And that might be his secondary career again, his fallback career, because don't forget, Martin, about 18 months ago, we were told by Lineker's management team that there were offers coming in from other media organisations for a lot more money. Well, we don't see any doors being opened for him now. He's being booted off the BBC. So I think that was a convenient fallacy for Gary Lineker 18 months ago, 2 years ago. And for the campaign, for that organisation who are fighting anti-Semitism, to actually say, now listen, Lineker is the figurehead of this, the poster boy, and that's incredibly troublesome. Now, Gary Lineker will be going from our screens on May the 3rd, whatever the final day of the footy season is, Martin. Hopefully Everton will finish above your beloved Nottingham Forest with our late...
In your dreams, mate.
In my dreams. But that's incredibly worrying. There was also a protest at the BBC, I think, in the last 24 hours from a Jewish organisation saying, look, we're worried that we're spending 170 nicker a year every household to fund this garbage, and it's very worrying.
And you know what's incredible about the BBC's defence? They're saying that the son of the Hamas operative, well, he wasn't actually real Hamas, he wasn't a real terrorist, he just worked in the Hamas civil service amidst the food production department. Can you imagine the BBC like saying, oh, he's not a real right-winger, he just works in the catering corps?
Yeah, it's the blissful naivety and the myopic approach that there would be someone who has an appointment so high up with the Hamas government that doesn't have some sort of influence or isn't somehow influenced by the hierarchical structure of Hamas. I think that's blissful naivety and wishful thinking.
Danny Kelly, always a pleasure to get your opinion on the show, and good luck with that pipe dream of Everton getting above Forest. The very, very best to you, my old son. Now, if you're in search of some winter sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Heavy outbreaks of rain affecting western parts of the Mediterranean and improving temperatures across Greece, where they have been below average over the last few days. So some heavy outbreaks of rain, some heavy showers affecting Madeira, also parts of Lisbon and parts of Gibraltar at times. As we move towards the central Mediterranean, largely settled, lots of dry weather and some sunny spells. And although temperatures are improving across Greece, there are going to be some heavy showers at times, largely dry and settled into the weekend, with the best of the temperatures across Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers that have been prevailing across northwestern and eastern parts through the day will tend to ease during the rest of the day, and we'll see widespread clear skies overnight as a ridge of high pressure moves in. That's going to nudge this low out of the way. That means the showers that we've seen in East Anglia will tend to clear off, and the showers across northwestern parts will also fade, but we'll still see one or two downpours across the north and west of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland overnight. But away from these areas, widely clear skies, one or two mist patches first thing, most especially parts of the Midlands, northwest England, and a widespread frost. Temperatures down to -2 generally, and in some sheltered spots -3 to -4 or 5. But despite the chill, actually a beautiful start to Friday. Plenty of sunshine first thing, and we've just got that mist across parts of the Midlands into northwest England. And that's going to clear through the first few hours of daylight. Northern Ireland, plenty of sunshine. Parts of Scotland still seeing one or two showers, especially Shetland and the Western Isles, but well, they'll tend to ease through the day as well. So for most, it is a dry day. It's a bright day as well once any early mist has cleared. Sunny spells and long spells of sunshine across some central and southern parts of the country. I think the cloud will tend to build once again across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. The breeze will pick up, but out of the breeze, in the sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed. Highs of 9 or 10 Celsius. Now, Friday evening sees the cloud clear once again across much of England and Wales, perhaps eastern Scotland, but I think thicker cloud starts to move in across the west of Scotland and Northern Ireland. That will keep things frost-free here as we start the weekend. Some outbreaks of rain turning up as well. Otherwise, it's a cold start to the weekend, but plenty of sunshine to come.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:49. I'm Martin Daubney here on GB News. Now, every driver's personal information is about to be made available to the police under Labour's new crime laws. The Crime and Policing Bill will give law enforcement the power to access 50 million motorists' data for the very first time. And joining me now to discuss this is the former Scotland Yard detective, great friend of the show, Peter Bleksley. Peter, a pleasure to have you in the studio as ever. Now, this has got people very, very divided. On the one hand, it will allow the coppers the opportunity to cross-reference CCTV if you're a serious criminal and you're at large and you're on the DVLL database. They may be able to marry up and pin you down. On the other hand, a lot of people are concerned about Big Brother surveillance creeping too far. Where do you stand on this?
I'm firmly on the side that this is a good story for policing.
Yeah.
This is a welcome addition to the government's Crime and Policing Bill, which has started its process of going through Parliament this week, so we hope to see it on the statute book before very long. And credit must go to the Tory party as well, because this section of this bill was their idea.
Yeah.
Now, picture the scene, if we may, bearing in mind that we have roads that have completely unacceptable levels of drug drivers, drink drivers, people losing their lives through people being on their phones when they're driving the car. These are pretty much daily occurrences, and it is appalling. If a police officer stops somebody driving a car, and perhaps there's no offence disclosed, but they may have had some other reason to want to stop this driver or speak to this driver, to be able to access the DVLA database and get name, address, photographs, and all of that will be very, very helpful, bearing in mind there are so many people, regrettably, in this country that we don't quite frankly know who they are, where they've come from, what their intentions are, or why they're here.
And that is a great point. Not every bad guy will have a driving licence, so they're out of the loop. I see now, when I drive around London in particular, facial recognition police vans all over the shop. They're scanning people as they're going about their daily business. And that doesn't just include the bad guys, that includes anybody who's out and about. So is there a danger, Peter, that everybody now, this is the first step towards mass surveillance, where we're all facially scanned, it's cross-referenced to us wherever we are, and it's not just those who are breaking the law being monitored, but we all are?
Well, with regards to facial recognition evidence, and there's no suggestion yet that the DVLA database-held photographs will be checked against facial recognition databases. That's subject of some discussion. But in regards to facial recognition technology, of which I am a supporter, unfortunately, there is no regulatory framework for it. Parliament has not debated this matter and has not created laws around it. So the police have really been fumbling in the dark, making their own way through the usage of this. South Wales Police and the Metropolitan Police have, to their credit, been pioneers in this field and have shown some courage in deploying it, and it has caught hundreds of wanted people. Our streets are less safe than they used to be. Criminals, sadly, rule the roost. We need to give the police every reasonable facility, tool and power that we can.
We have, unfortunately, Peter, of course, seen episodes of policemen going wrong, stalkers, bad guys with malintent. They could potentially access this database for their own ill purposes.
And only today, news broke of a policewoman in Lancashire who was very fortunate to avoid a jail sentence because she illegally accessed the police database over 30 times. She should have gone to jail. Yes, I understand those concerns. We know that police vetting and recruitment and training has been, and in some regards, remains lamentable. We know that police supervision is not what it should be because officers are not being held to account by those of the next rank and the rank above them. So, yes, policing has many, many issues to deal with, particularly the Metropolitan Police. But I'm a sickeningly optimistic kind of bloke, and I hope that somehow, some way, policing can find its way, can ditch the liberal, wokey, fluffy kind of nonsense and get back to delivering the policing that the public wants. And that is police officers on the streets that hopefully they'll know their local local police officers that patrol, prevent crime, investigate crime promptly and professionally, and guess what? Arrest bad guys.
Peter Blexley, every time you come on the show, I'm sure people out there are just wishing that you were still back on the beat. We might have half a chance. Peter Blexley, always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much indeed. Beautiful. Now, just over an hour's time, Keir Starmer is set to meet Donald Trump. But can our Prime Minister come out of that meeting with anything other than a bag of duty-frees? We'll bring you all that live. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel. But now it's time for your weather.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers that have been prevailing across northwestern and eastern parts through the day will tend to ease during the rest of the day, and we'll see widespread clear skies overnight as a ridge of high pressure moves in. That's going to nudge this low out of the way. That means the showers that we've seen in East Anglia will tend to clear off. And the showers across northwestern parts will also fade, but we'll still see one or two downpours across the north and west of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland overnight. But away from these areas, widely clear skies, one or two mist patches first thing, most especially parts of the Midlands, northwest England, and a widespread frost. Temperatures down to -2 generally, and in some shelter spots -3 to -4 or 5. But despite the chill, actually a beautiful start to Friday. Plenty of sunshine first thing, and we've just got that mist across parts of the Midlands into northwest England. And that's going to clear through the first few hours of daylight. Northern Ireland, plenty of sunshine. Parts of Scotland still seeing one or two showers, especially Shetland and the Western Isles, but well, they'll tend to ease through the day as well. So for most, it is a dry day. It's a bright day as well once any early mist has cleared. Sunny spells and long spells of sunshine across some central and southern parts of the country. I think the cloud will tend to build once again across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. The breeze will pick up, but out of the breeze, in the sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed. Highs of 9 or 10 Celsius. Now, Friday evening sees the cloud clear once again across much of England and Wales, perhaps eastern Scotland, but I think thicker cloud starts to move in across the west of Scotland and Northern Ireland. That will keep things frost-free here as we start the weekend. Some outbreaks of rain turning up as well. Otherwise, it's a cold start to the weekend, but plenty of sunshine to come.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Alan Wright. In East Yorkshire, the M62 is partly blocked eastbound after a collision between junction 37 at Howden and 38 for North Cave. In Derbyshire, the M1 is partly blocked both ways for roadworks between junction 28 for Mansfield and junction 30 for Worksop and the A616. In Worcestershire, the M5, you've got lane closures both ways for roadworks. There between junction 4A for the M42 and junction 5 Droitwich and the A38. In Berkshire, delays on the M4 westbound. They're doing emergency repairs there after a vehicle fire, and that's between junction 13 for Newbury and junction 14 for Hungerford.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British Giveaway. First, you'll win a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash to spend however you like. You'll also receive the very latest iPhone 16, and we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 to spend in your favourite store. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Enter Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Keir Starmer is set to meet US President Donald Trump today at the White House. And the PM is expected to talk tough on Ukraine, but with Trump holding all of the cards on Ukraine, on trade, on tariffs, on the Chagos Islands, on free speech, in fact, on absolutely everything. Can Keir Starmer come away with anything more than a bag of fags and a Toblerone from America? And every political party held the same promise since 2010. They all promised to lower immigration, and all of them failed. And new figures out just today show a record 110,000 claimed asylum in 2024, and that's double the amount of just 2021. Is this final proof that the lunatics have taken over our asylum system? And a fundraiser has been launched to help an 81-year-old SAS hero to pay for his care home costs. Tak Tagavisi helped storm the Iranian embassy in 1980 and is a Distinguished Conduct Medal recipient in Amman. On today's show, I'll be joined by Tak's wife and the SAS veteran comrade of his who started this magnificent appeal. That's all. Welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. In around about an hour's time now, Keir Starmer is expected to hove into view at the White House for his first meeting with President Trump at the White House, following in the steps of Emmanuel Macron, a humiliation enough to follow the French. I digress. High on the agenda, of course, will be Ukraine. A backstop is required, not for the first time. Remember the backstop in Ireland, and how did that work out? A backstop in Ukraine, expecting Donald Trump to hover and protect Ukraine. Well, perhaps if Europe had coughed up its dues for NATO for decades and decades, it wouldn't be so dependent. And now Donald Trump seems to hold all the cards. Zelensky is due there tomorrow to sign this minerals deal, which could seal the fate. Let's be honest. Does Britain hold any sway whatsoever on the world stage anymore? And we could even be kissing goodbye to the Chagos Islands, the deal. And remember, Starmer would like to give them away, but could that even be torpedoed by Donald Trump, the president, who seems to hold all of the cards? Let me know your views. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. Now it's your headlines, and here's Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. It's just gone 4 o'clock. Your top stories this hour. Former Labour MP Mike Amesbury has had his 10-week prison sentence for assault suspended for 2 years following an appeal at Chester Crown Court. Mr Amesbury had appealed his 10-week prison sentence for punching a man to the ground. He pleaded guilty last month to assaulting 45-year-old Paul Fellows following a row in a street in Cheshire in October of last year. He's been ordered to carry out 200 hours of unpaid work, undertake alcohol monitoring and anger management course, and carry out 20 days of rehabilitation work. The number of people claiming asylum in the UK has reached its highest level since records began in 1979. That's according to figures released by the Home Office today. Just over 108,000 people applied for asylum in the UK in 2024, the highest number for any 12-month period since current records began in 2001. The number is up 18% from almost 92,000 in 2023. Migrants who arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in small boats accounted for 32% of the total number of people claiming asylum last year. Pakistani was the most common nationality among asylum applicants. Home Office Minister Dame Angela Eagle says the government are cracking down on asylum applications, but Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp blamed the Labour government for the situation getting worse.
These figures have got considerably worse since Labour came into government. They said they would end hotel use, but in fact the number of illegal immigrants in hotels has gone up by 10,000 under this Labour government. They claimed they'd clear the asylum backlog. That's gone up as well. The number of people crossing the Channel illegally by small boat has gone up by 28% under this Labour government. What is clear is that the whole immigration system is getting worse and worse thanks to the misguided policies that the Labour government is pursuing. It's happened on their watch. It's getting worse.
In other news, US President Donald Trump says it's up to Europe to provide security guarantees for Ukraine, and there will be no guarantees of Washington's involvement. Ukraine's President Zelensky is due to meet the US President to sign a deal tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is in Washington, where he'll meet Mr. Trump later today. Speaking to reporters last night, Sir Keir Starmer dismissed growing tensions between the US and Europe, insisting the special relationship must go from strength to strength. And back in the UK, a 19-year-old woman has died after being attacked by a dog in Bristol. Two people, a man and a woman, both aged in their 20s, have been arrested and remain in police custody. Officers sedated and seized the dog, which will be assessed by experts. Initial reports suggested it may be an XL bully, but police said it was too early to confirm the breed. Gene Hackman's daughter thinks her father and his wife died from carbon monoxide poisoning. The Hollywood actor was found dead alongside his wife, Betsy Arakawa, at their home. A warning, the following contains flashing images. Police in Santa Fe say they are found at the home in New Mexico alongside their dog, adding there were no signs of foul play. Elizabeth Jean Hackman told TMZ that while they are not sure of the couple's cause of death, they think it could be due to inhaling toxic fumes. And Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan say some of their seized assets have now been returned to them by Romanian authorities, including properties and vehicles. It comes as the controversial brothers have left Romania on a private jet headed for Florida. That's according to sources. It's after prosecutors lifted a travel ban. It's understood the internet personalities will return to Romania towards the end of March to fulfill judicial control obligations. The Trump administration reportedly pressed the Romanian government to lift travel restrictions on the brothers earlier this month. The controversial influencer and his sibling are facing a series of criminal charges in the country, which they both strongly deny. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Martin.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Now, not long now until Sir Keir Starmer meets Donald Trump. Around about an hour's time, the Prime Minister is expected to meet the US President, and the PM is expected to talk tough, of course, on Ukraine. But with Trump holding all of the cards on Ukraine, on trade, on tariffs, on the Chagos Islands, in fact, on absolutely everything, it seems, can Sir Keir Starmer actually come away from Washington with anything more than a bag of duty-frees? Well, joining me now is the Shadow Defence Minister, Mark Francois, and the Labour activist Chris Worrell. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Mark, let's start with you. Obviously, you're an impassioned defender of Ukraine, have been since the beginning, and I believe, in fact, you've just come from the debate in Chamber. What's the latest and what's the expectations and the hopes for the UK in terms of this negotiation today with Donald Trump?
Yeah, right, man. I've basically come hot foot from the Commons. We've just spent several hours debating the Ukrainian situation. Two key points, I think, to relate to your viewers. One, there was absolute unanimity across the entire House of Commons that there can be no negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine.
But Donald Trump won't listen to that or care about that?
Well, if you don't have Ukraine at the table, no deal will be enduring. Imagine if the roles were reversed and someone was negotiating about our fate and we weren't involved. So there was absolute unanimity on that. And the second thing on which there was unanimity was, under no circumstances can Putin be allowed to win. We can't allow any final settlement that Putin could put to his own people as a victory. Because if we do, he will wait a few years and then he'll come back for a bigger bite. All his history shows that. So there was a famous admiral of the fleet in the First World War called Admiral Sir Jackie Fisher, and he famously said, ultimately, all nations desire peace, but peace on their terms. We cannot allow a peace on Putin's terms. The Commons was absolutely united on that.
Again, I raised the point, Donald Trump probably won't give a toot's cahoots what any Western democracy other than himself says about what that negotiation should look like. In fact, that's borne out by the fact that nobody else has been invited to that deal, even Zelensky himself. And isn't the point, what does victory look like, has been a shifting sands anyway, because there seems to be unanimity now, perhaps not amongst yourself, that there might have to be some concession, some surrender of territory to Putin to get this thing dealt with.
He should give a hoot, in your words. Ian Duncan Smith led off the debate, extremely experienced, ex-soldier, and he made a very strong point, which is that Putin is an absolutist dictator. If he is allowed to win, then that means Xi will be emboldened to invade Taiwan. As Ian put it very well, the road to Taiwan runs through Ukraine. So I think the White House hopefully will understand, if you allow one autocrat to win here over a democracy, you're risking another autocrat in Xi eventually invading Taiwan. The two are indivisible.
OK, Chris Worrell, let's bring you in at this point. A lot of weight resting on not just the Keir Starmer shoulders, but Macron's yesterday no doubt had the same demands. But let's be honest, what power has Sir Keir Starmer got over Donald Trump? Trump holds all the cards. His first cabinet meeting yesterday, he was resolute. We've got the pot of gold. We'll go cold turkey on any nation that defies us. Really, Sir Keir Starmer hasn't got a leg to stand on today, has he?
I don't agree, Martin. I mean, let's start off with the facts and with what Mark said. Putin's sort of nibbling at Europe like a sort of rat in a grain store at the end of the day. And what Keir Starmer's...
It's more than a nibble, but yeah, I'll take your point.
Away.
Yeah.
But, but at the end of the day, Britain does have a role to play in this. We're one of the biggest suppliers of funding for the Ukraine war. We've just done 30,000 drones last year. We're running Operation Intercept, so a lot of intelligence in the area. And the geopolitics about this is Ukraine has historically been reliant on Russia and China for a lot of their trade. And with, UK at the table with United States, we can see Donald Trump and Keir Starmer working in partnership. Those mineral agreements, you've got to remember, this country lost out on a minerals agreement to Azerbaijan as part of the privatisation to fund that war because we didn't have a critical mineral strategy. That was meant to be put in place in 2022 under the Tories.
So you agree then that the West, as many say it, should plunder some of Ukraine's resources in return for the spoils of war?
It's not about spoils of war. This is about defending the Europe as a whole, and I think Europe are very much united in this. Donald Trump's had an unconventional way of going about negotiation, and you can spin it how you like. But at the end of the day, people are at the table, and we've got to make sure, to Mark's point, that we get it on Ukraine's terms.
OK, Mark Francois, let's move this on to the Chagos Islands, something else that could no doubt be on the agenda today. Donald Trump, once again, there seems to hold all the cards. Even David Lammy was forced to concede yesterday, actually. America could veto this, and what could happen is he could say yesterday, he was saying we will not give an inch to China, or giving Chagos away to Mauritius seems like giving an inch to China. Trump could blow that deal out of the water too.
Well, last night we had a very different type of debate. The Conservatives used one of what are called our Opposition Day debates. We can pick the the topic. We picked Chagos. Very lively, very sparky debate. And again, government ministers refused to answer two key questions. The first was, how much would this cost? Yep. Deadpanned it every time. And two, is part of this recent increase in defence spending, which we welcome, going to be used to go straight to Mauritius in order to buy back or lease back an island that we already own? And again, on that, repeatedly, Labour members refused to answer. Look, it would be bonkers for us to spend £18 billion to give that to Argentina to lease back the Falkland Islands. So why on earth are we proposing to give £18 billion to Mauritius to lease back a strategically vital facility that we own in the first place? It's madness. And we very much hope there'll be a reverse Love Actually moment and Trump will put Starmer out of his misery on Chagos, and then we can spend all of that money on defence instead.
Is this bigger point here, Chris, that David Lammy can have laudable notions, he can have laudable notions about reparations, about righting the wrongs of Britain's past? None of it matters a row of beans. Donald Trump will come in and say, no, that's a key thing for America to keep a hold of. Actually, Britain, change your foreign policy, thus rendering Sir Keir Starmer's government on the foreign policy stage utterly neutered.
Well, look, you know, the Labour Party's inherited negotiations. I think there was 11 under the Tories. Now I think there's been 2 or 3. But
yeah, but we then stopped it.
No, well, you hadn't stopped it because it was passed on when you lost the election.
No, that's not correct. No, Cameron ended them. We decided...
started it.
No, Cameron ended
on a whim.
it. No, Cameron ended it.
It's been a clown show.
In the end, we decided... No, we looked at it and we decided no deal was better than a bad deal.
When was that announced? I didn't see that one. I just saw 11 negotiations that got nowhere.
No, Lord Cameron formally ended the process.
Liz Truss picked it up. She was, like, spoken to on a whim in her 38 days, brought dug the whole thing back up. At the end of the day, what we're seeing now is a new president that's come in. It is one of the most important strategic bases in the world, militarily.
So why give it away?
It's not giving it away. It's a lease deal with the US. This is where the
it's not with the US, it's with Mauritius.
No, you're buying... Sorry.
It's with Mauritius,
I understand that if you want to...
It's not with America.
No, sorry. But US will use the base that the UK would lease from the Mauritius, right? That's very simple, right? What's being paid, this 18 billion is a nonsense number.
But what is the number?
We don't know the number.
Well, why would you negotiate in public, in the Commons, give away your cards? It just seems like the most nonsense thing.
Oh, Mr. Duff, we've been asking for 4 months how much taxpayers' money is at stake.
Telling anyone what you're going to bid when you're in the middle of a negotiation? It's nonsense. You had Kemi Badenoch, or Bottle Job as she's known, doing more whining than winning. She, with her in the PMQs yesterday, was an absolute embarrassment, asking questions, getting spun around, not running out the morning before, trying to put some half...
She beat him.
She beat him.
No,
you're smoking.
No, I'm not...
I must be strong.
I don't smoke. Right. He was asked twice by her and then once by a Tory backbencher, Dr. Kieran Mullen, are you going to use any of this money from your defence announcement yesterday, which we welcomed, to go to Mauritius to pay for the Chagos deal? He was asked that 3 times, and every time he ducked the question. So even if he wouldn't say what the amount was, it was a question in principle. You're going to use part of the defence budget to pay for it. He refused 3 times to answer the question. British taxpayers have a right to know.
And they'll be spending a lot more if they answer those questions in public rather than getting leverage put on them.
Let's move on now to another thing which is certain to be on the agenda today, and that is tariffs. And I wonder, Mr. Francois, if Sir Keir Starmer will be mercifully grateful about Brexit. Because now we're not a part of the European Union, we'll be dodging the tariffs aimed towards Brussels yesterday. And if we were in tow with that, it could have cost Britain £24 billion in missed economy and trade. But do you still think we might find ourselves at the mercy on the receiving end of some tough tariffs from Trump?
Well, we have an opportunity here, in fact. When you're in the EU, because you're in the customs union, you can't do a one-to-one trade deal with any other country. You can only do it via the EU. That's one of the advantages of leaving. We could now do a massive trade deal directly with the United States, Nothing to do with the European Union. Trump is thought to want a trade deal. We should see this as an opportunity as the United Kingdom. We're the biggest investor in the US. The US is the biggest investor in the UK. We should go for a positive, massive trade deal between us and them and let the EU get on with it.
I wonder, Chris, when reality beckons and opportunity knocks like this, you know, the USA is boom time. The European Union is doom time. France is sinking. Germany is sinking. We're flatlining our own way towards recession. The opportunity lies over the pond, but can Sir Keir Starmer uncouple his own Love Actually moment? His heartstrings are tied to Brussels.
I don't believe a word of that, Martin. I think you look last week, the stock market crashed in the US, and those tariff calls are really sending a few shockwaves through their market with inflation expectations. But bringing it back to your point, you know, Europe is not doomed. And we will be sort of working more closely with them, particularly on defence. And there's big announcements for budgets. And I think the UK government, with our 30,000 drones that we've sold to Ukraine, can make the most of. But when it comes to the trade deals with the US, yes, there will be bilateral agreements. And I've got full confidence in Lord Manderson, who's out there, who's an expert as an EU trade commissioner.
That perhaps stands you alone.
Well, he's got expertise in trade deals, and he was a big advocate of bilateral agreements. And I think someone with that knowledge and expertise, you know, as well as his, you know, problems that he's had, but being pro-EU as well, will get the most out of those deals. But at the end of the day, when we look at Europe, we do need to work a lot more closely with Europe, particularly on trade and particularly on defence, and as well as illegal immigration, which under the last Conservative government, they didn't have a deportation agreement, and we're fixing that too.
OK, Mark Francois, final word to you. Do you have any faith, much faith, that Keir Starmer can come back with something glowing and joyous for the British public, for the taxpayer from Washington, D.C.?
The first duty of government, above all others, is the defence of the realm. My dad was a D-Day veteran. I've believed that all my adult life. We'd love to get the trade deal. The most important thing is that if there is going to be a peace agreement that would stop the war in Ukraine, we all want to stop Russians murdering innocent Ukrainians. Putin using cruise missiles to blow up children's hospitals. That's what they've actually done. That came up in the Commons today. So we all want to see this war stop, but it cannot stop on terms that are advantageous to Putin, because all he'd do is wait a few years and then have another go. And by then, Xi might have invaded Taiwan. So overwhelmingly, we want to see the Prime Minister, and he had the support of the whole House on this, we want to see the Prime Minister work constructively with the President of the United States and with Zelensky to try and get a peace that will endure, but a peace that keeps Ukraine secure and doesn't allow Putin to claim victory. That should be the Prime Minister's overwhelming objective.
OK, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Mark Francois and Chris Worrell, thank you for both joining me in the studio today at GB News. Now it's time now for the Great British Giveaway. If you want to be one of our 2 new winners, each with a new iPhone, shopping vouchers and 10 grand in tax-free cash, and here's the details that you need to enter.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British Giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Now, I've got some breaking news for you now. And Andrew and Tristan Tate, the 2 brothers, have arrived in the United States after leaving Romania this morning by private jet. Of course, 3 years ago, the pair were arrested on allegations of rape, of human trafficking and on money laundering, something they have vehemently denied all the way along. Now, previously, the brothers were banned from leaving the country, but that has now been lifted, and they have now landed in the United States. As you can see there, pictures on your screen from South Florida. The Tate brothers have landed in America. Now, coming up next, the number of people claiming asylum in the United Kingdom has hit a record high once again. I'll have all the latest figures next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
It's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 4:25 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the number of asylum applications in the United Kingdom have reached a record high with just over 108,000 applications made last year. And let's bring us fully up to speed now with our Homeland Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, every government from 2010 onwards promised to take back control of our borders. They promised to tackle this. All of them have failed. Today, proof once again the lunatics have taken over the asylum system.
Yes, indeed, and we've had 44,000 of these so-called irregular migrants, illegal migrants as we describe them, coming in via small boat, the backs of lorries or in other routes. The majority, 37,000 last year, came in the backs of lorries. Most of them, or the nation most represented on the boats, was Afghanistan, but a lot now of Vietnamese and Indians on those boats as well. And of course, what's the consequence of more and more people coming across the channel and claiming asylum? They need to be housed somewhere. And remember, of course, the previous opposition, Labour, said that they would scrap the reliance on hotels to accommodate asylum seekers, but you know, they have not done that, and in fact they have increased the number of asylum seekers who are being housed in hotels. 38,079 asylum seekers being accommodated in hotels by December of last year. That was 2,400 up on the previous 3 months, and the second quarter rise that we've seen in terms of those accommodated in hotels. So Labour have some way to go before they actually deliver on their promise to end the reliance on hotels. And in doing that, of course, first of all, they've got to stop them coming over the channel in the first place.
Mark White, excellent as ever, if not depressing news. Thank you very much for joining us. And to continue the conversation back in the studio here in Westminster, now let's bring in the former Director General of Border Force, Tony Smith, who has just been giving evidence at the immigration bill hearing, I believe, over in the Commons. You've been working in this job a long time. This must be depressingly, achingly familiar to you now, Tone, but is it getting worse?
Well, I mean, the overall asylum figure, which I think is something like 120,000, is a record. I mean, I was in the job in 2002, Martin, which was the previous record. That was about 100,000. But they were actually literally camping on the beaches there. We had to commandeer a lot of bed and breakfast all along the south coast. It was a huge crisis. We were able to reduce those numbers by putting in the juxtaposed control. So the Border Force was able to stop people coming on the ferries and on the lorries. But, of course, we haven't been able to stop them coming on the boats. And, of course, although you're saying 40,000 are coming on the boat, 35,000 in boats, 5,000 in lorries, still another 60,000, Martin, that are coming in probably with visas. Coming in with visas and then claiming asylums. This is all racking up to the asylum backlog, which they're trying to clear. But the problem with that is that we don't have any longer that third country removal option that Rwanda offered. Regardless of your thoughts on Rwanda, and it wasn't perfect, it cost a lot of money, it never happened and all the rest of it, but at least it gave us an outlet for people coming from countries like Iran, like Afghanistan, like Syria. They will now know, they're waiting over in Calais, they will now know that once this bill is passed, they can simply get on a boat, get into British waters, and they will probably be allowed to stay permanent in the UK. So I don't see how we're going to stop the pull factor, and that's my real problem with this.
And if we have no returns agreement through humanitarian reasons with countries like Afghanistan, Syria, as you mentioned, Iraq, Iran, then this is red carpet. It's rolling out the red carpet with the full knowledge now with Rwanda flushed down the pan. There's simply no outlet. Hotel Britain is open.
Exactly, because, they will be able to remove some countries. I mean, the only ones that's really worked, when you're looking at dents in the figures for the last 4, was Albania. We had a dedicated campaign team on Albania. We sent people to Albania. We did a deal with them. So they're not coming so much on the boats now. I'm not saying they're not still coming, but they're not coming on the boats anymore. And that kind of worked. That's the only thing that's really worked. You have to have a removals deterrent. And as long as the message goes back across the channel that, look, just get in this boat, get into British waters, you'll get picked up, you'll get to stay in the UK, then more and more, obviously, will continue to come, Martin.
Tony, I saw an astonishing figure this morning in the Financial Times. Now that the foreign aid budget has been shrunk back to 9.2 billion is the new total, 4.2 billion of that will be spent on servicing asylum, housing them. Literally almost half of our entire foreign aid budget will now be spent on housing and feeding foreigners on British soil. That is astonishing.
And this is taxpayer money, Martin. At the end of the day, this is taxpayer money that is raised by the government, and that's what it's being spent upon. And so for me, why is it that we are having to, as taxpayers, having to pay that all that money? What is the charge against the individual? Let's just say someone comes across in a boat, gets into the system. Why do we not charge back the costs of their new clothing, their accommodation? And if they're allowed to stay, charge that at HMRC rates as we do with student loans or something. So so that debt is ultimately paid back. At the moment, it isn't actually. Once they're given asylum support, once they're given status in this country, there is a recognisable charge against the state that will never pay back. Now, not me, don't take that from me. There's a lot of work being done by different people. Carl Williams over at the Policy Institute, which has done the maths now. and said that actually the net cost, fiscal cost to the British state is very, very significant of a never-ending supply of illegal migration. So I think we need to quantify that and find a way of trying to recover it somehow or amend the asylum support system so that it's not costing so much to the taxpayer.
Thank you very much, Tony, for trying to make us make sense of this system. It really does feel sometimes like the entire country is turned into an asylum. That's Tony Smith, the former Director General of Border Force. Always a pleasure to have your company here on the show. And lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including a fundraiser has been launched to help an 81-year-old SAS hero to pay for his care home costs. I'll be joined by his wife and his SAS buddy who set that fund up. But first is your headlines, and it's Sophia Wenser.
Martin, thank you. These are your headlines from the GB Newsroom. Former Labour MP Mike Amesbury will walk free after winning an appeal against his 10-week jail sentence for punching a man in the street. Mr Amesbury had appealed his 10-week prison sentence at Chester Crown Court for punching a man to the ground. He pleaded guilty last month to assaulting 45-year-old Paul Fellows following a row in a street in Cheshire in October of last year. He's been ordered to carry out 200 hours of unpaid work, undertake alcohol monitoring, an anger management course, and carry out 20 days of rehabilitation work. The number of people claiming asylum in the UK has reached its highest level since records began in 1979, according to figures released by the Home Office today. Just over 108,000 people applied for asylum in the UK in 2024, the highest number for any 12-month period since current records began in 2001. The number is up 18% from almost 92,000 in 2023. Migrants who arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in small boats accounted for 32% of the total number of people claiming asylum last year. Pakistani was the most common nationality among asylum applicants. In other news, US President Donald Trump says it's up to Europe to provide security guarantees for Ukraine, and there will be no guarantees of Washington's involvement. Ukraine's President Zelensky is due to meet the US President to sign a deal tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is in Washington today, where he'll meet Mr Trump later on. Speaking to reporters last night, Sir Keir Starmer dismissed growing tensions between the US and Europe, insisting the special relationship must go from strength to strength. Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan have arrived in Florida after Romania lifted their travel ban. The controversial brothers also say some of their seized assets have now been returned to them by Romanian authorities, including properties and vehicles. The Trump administration reportedly pressed the Romanian government to lift travel restrictions on the brothers earlier this month. The controversial influencer and his sibling are facing a series of criminal charges in the country, which they both strongly deny. And Gene Hackman's daughter Elizabeth thinks her father and his wife died from carbon monoxide poisoning. The Hollywood actor was found dead alongside his wife, Betsy Arakawa, at their home. A warning: the following contains flashing images. Police in Santa Fe say they were found at their home in New Mexico alongside their dog, adding there were no signs of foul play. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Alan Wright. In East Yorkshire, the M62 is queuing eastbound after a breakdown between junction 37 for Howden and 38 for North Cave. In Derbyshire, the M1, you've got lane restrictions both ways for roadworks. They're between junction 28 for Mansfield and junction 30 for Worksop. In Hertfordshire, the M25 is partly blocked clockwise. There's been a collision there near junction 19 for Watford, and the outside two lanes of 4 are blocked there at the moment. In Berkshire, the M4 westbound, there are 2 lanes shut there for repairs. That's after a vehicle fire between junction 13 for Newbury and the A34 and junction 14 for Hungerford.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Now, we're going to introduce you to a friend of mine, friend of the programme now, and that is Katie Nicholl. Katie is the royal correspondent at Vanity Fair, and she has got a tale to tell. And this tale began, here we are on Valentine's Day, Katie, and this was 2 years ago, and this was a horror story we're talking about.
Yeah, it was a bit of a horror story. It wasn't the Valentine's I'd wanted or expected. I got a call from the Royal Free. I'd been in for an MRI earlier on in the January, and for my liver, and I got a call saying that I had cholangiocarcinoma, which I had no idea what it was.
I have no idea what it is.
I know. Well, Dora, who is my surgeon, who...
Now, this is your surgeon. It's very important, lady, and this is Dr. Dora. And you really did do the explorer bit. You had to go in there and cut out this cancer.
Yeah, correct.
But tell us what sort of cancer this is.
So this is a primary liver cancer that arises from the bile duct of the liver. So it's not a metastatic coming from elsewhere, it's a primary. It doesn't arise from the hepatocyte itself. I mean, imagine that the liver is like a red thing, and inside it growing something like a green tree with a lot of branches. So within those branches, we have the epithelial cells, the bile duct cells, and this is where this cancer comes from.
I felt that I was possibly perimenopausal. I was getting these heart palpitations. I was getting really, really bad sense of indigestion, but nothing that was making me overly concerned. But I was with a girlfriend, and she just said, "Are you all right?" And I burst into tears. I said, "You know, I just don't feel myself." And she said, "Just go see your GP." And I did.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 4:38 with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, friends of an SAS Iran embassy siege hero have launched a public appeal to help pay for his crippling healthcare home costs. The military pension of Tak Takavasi doesn't cover the fees for his specialist care. And the 81-year-old hero was one of the 20 troopers who stormed the Iranian embassy in West London in 1980 to end a dramatic six-day armed siege. And let's remind ourselves of that historic moment when the SAS went in. An unforgettable moment and legendary moment of heroism. Worth pointing out, nobody was killed in that explosion. Now, joining me now is the SAS veteran Matt Hellier, a very good friend of Tak, who started this fundraiser, and Tak's wife, Mandy Boswick. Welcome to the both of you. Absolute pleasure to have your company. Matt, I'm going to start with you because you started this fundraiser, and all credit to you. Tell us about Tak the man, Tak the legend, Tak the soldier.
Tak is an absolute legend within all military circles, especially within the Special Air Service. Tak has fought in so many battles, iconic battles, but one of the most important battles that he fought was supporting Oman against an uprising in 1972, where he was left. He was one of two Fijians that fought in that battle, and it was legendary. He should have been awarded Victoria Cross. His close friend Labba was killed, and Tak was shot numerous occasions while they were pushing back the Adu, which were the terrorists at the time. Tak then carried on. He got awarded a DCM for that action, and then he moved on. He fought in every battle, and then fought in the Falklands War, fought at the Iranian embassy siege, and then he went on into his security industry. And he was a legend within the security industry. But not only has he been doing security and soldiering, he's also been looking after veterans himself, mental health veterans, and that is one of Tak's passions in life, and that's what really drove me and Mandy to look after Tak now.
Mandy, a formidable man, and your wonderful husband now ageing and requires care. Tell us about the kind of care that Tak needs, and tell us about how GB News viewers can potentially help.
Well, he went into care last year after a long decision. He's got dementia. He was formally diagnosed with dementia off the back of a traumatic brain injury as a result of his military service. So during that battle that you've just heard there that Matt's talked about in 1972, he was shot twice across the back of the head. And even though he suffered these horrific injuries that took him 2 years to recover from, he went back into the regiment and served his country in the most astonishing way. And then obviously carried on and now has complex health issues as a result of these injuries, as we know. So he went into care last year and he now needs 24/7 nursing care. He has ischemic heart disease, he has ischemic kidney disease, he's had a stroke, he has edema, and on top of that, he has respiratory problems as well and blood pressure problems. And all of this stems from his brain injury at the time in this battle. It's a remarkable man, and obviously everyone loves him in the care home, and he's doing extremely well there. And thanks to them, you know, he's doing as well as he is, and we want that care to continue. Unfortunately, you know, that comes at a cost. That level of care, that level of expertise that TAC and men like TAC will need at this point in their life. I work in this agenda as well as being TAC's wife, and I've worked in the veteran agenda. I've known in it quite well for many years, and there's lots of people now like TAC who are suffering dementia as a result of these injuries, and the level of care is just not there. And we're trying to meet the cost of this. And if it hadn't have been for Matt stepping in as he did just over a week ago and putting out this GoFundMe page, TAC would have had to have left the care home tomorrow. It would have had to have come to an end. So I would have been left not knowing where then to go with TAC and what help there was. So without Pilgrim Bandits and without Matt, putting that GoFundMe page up, and I think we've now reached over 30,000 on it. That will now, help us to support TAC for a few more years at the care home. But I think the pressing problem is that we don't have this level of care, and that is an issue in the UK.
Mandy, just have the fundraiser on our screens now. And you're right, it's just over £30,000. You've reached like 306% of that tally. Of course, we'd like to bump that up. I know GB News viewers know money is tight, but people out there, if you would like to contribute towards that, you can see on your screen, you simply go online. It's a GoFundMe page. You search for SAS Legend, Takavesi, TAKAVESI, and the charity, if I could bring you back in, Matt Tellier, I believe is your charity, Pilgrim Bandits. People can go on, they can donate a few quid to help an absolute legend in his autumnal years have the care he so richly deserves for giving a lifetime of fearless service to Queen and country.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame that the charities, regimental associations have been good. We look after medical care on all of our veterans. All of our charities really pull together. But it's down to the Veterans Minister and the Office for Veterans Affairs. This government needs to do more for its veterans. These are the people that maintain freedom, are fighting on the front line for all of our needs. And Mr. Starmer has, he's pushing our troops into battle now, but we need this support from the government. We only need, we not only need the support for our old and bold, but we also need it for our current guys, that are going to be injured soon. And hopefully, the government will be listening and they will support our veterans rather than keep taking them to court for things that they think they've done on the battlefield, So please, let's support our veterans. Let's get this message across to the government. These guys are legends, they're heroes, and they deserve the very best.
Yeah, I absolutely, totally agree with that. And I actually believe in the past few months, going to refresh that page now. We raised 400 quid there while you're talking, Matt, and I think that's now gone up a chunk more. It's now gone up. We've raised over £1,000 since you guys have been on. Please, GB News viewers out there, I know money is tight, times are tough, but look, this man Takavasi, absolute legend. Every penny will count. There is wonderful wife, Mandy Boswick, and his comrade, his pal, who stood up for him. Thank you, as ever, Matt Haddy, and I always say thank you for your service. So thank you, Takavasi, for your service. And thank you, Mandy, for coming on today. Absolutely wonderful. Love to you and to Tak. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, a quick hit with Chopper, because it's not long now before Keir Starmer meets Donald Trump, and our man in Washington, D.C., Chris Hope, has just got through security at the White House. Chris, what's the latest?
Well, we're here waiting to see Sir Keir Starmer arrive to meet Donald Trump. If Ben can turn the camera around, there's a huge military arrival waiting for the Prime Minister. It does show the extent to which the red carpet is being rolled out for our Prime Minister. We've been told by people here that they do get on quite well. They do respect each other. It's not like the kind of French knee-grabbing appearance in the Oval Office that we saw on Monday with Emmanuel Macron. Much more, I think there's a respect between the two men. Let's see if that plays out. We're expecting Sir Keir Starmer to arrive here in the next quarter of an hour. We'll have that on live for you for GB News, and then into the Oval, where I'll be there shouting questions for GB News at both the Prime Minister and, of course, President Donald Trump. Martin.
Of Chris Hope there, live at the White House. As we can see, the flags being trooped in by US servicemen, rolling out the full regalia ahead of Prime Minister Keir Starmer's visit to the White House. Of course, his first since Prime Minister, and his first since Donald Trump was crowned US President. That's coming next on the show. And also still to come, I'll be meeting the king of the kebabs. It's going to get meaty. I'm going to give him a good grilling. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers that have been prevailing across northwestern and eastern parts through the day will tend to ease during the rest of the day, and we'll see widespread clear skies overnight as a ridge of high pressure moves in. That's going to nudge this low out of the way. That means the showers that we've seen in East Anglia will tend to clear off. And the showers across northwestern parts will also fade, but we'll still see one or two downpours across the north and west of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland overnight. But away from these areas, widely clear skies, one or two mist patches first thing, most especially parts of the Midlands, northwest England, and a widespread frost. Temperatures down to -2 generally, and in some sheltered spots -3 to -4 or 5. But despite the chill, actually a beautiful start to Friday. Plenty of sunshine first thing. And we've just got that mist across parts of the Midlands into northwest England. And that's going to clear through the first few hours of daylight. Northern Ireland, plenty of sunshine. Parts of Scotland still seeing one or two showers, especially Shetland and the Western Isles. But well, they'll tend to ease through the day as well. So for most, it is a dry day. It's a bright day as well once any early mist has cleared. Sunny spells and long spells of sunshine across some central and southern parts of the country. I think the cloud will tend to build once again across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. The breeze will pick up, but out of the breeze, in the sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed. Highs of 9 or 10 Celsius. Now, Friday evening sees the cloud clear once again across much of England and Wales, perhaps eastern Scotland, but I think thicker cloud starts to move in across the west of Scotland and Northern Ireland. That will keep things frost-free here as we start the weekend. Some outbreaks of rain turning up as well. Otherwise, it's a cold start to the weekend, but plenty of sunshine to come.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Now, lick your lips because it's 4:51. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, and joining me now is Maz Demir of Skewed Kitchen. You took home the coveted Top Chef prize at the British Kebab Awards last night, and he joins me now in the studio with some of your magnificent wares. You are the Kebab King. Tell us, you won the award last night. I believe it's not the first time you've done this. What makes a perfect kebab, and what is this beautiful creation here?
This is our signature lamb dish. Firstly, thank you for having me on your show. So this is our signature lamb dish, but so we this is the sort of the higher end of what we can push kebabs to, basically. So it's the fine dining of kebabs, let's say.
So it's not like your street corner doner kebab. Although I've got to say, Maz, I like those sort of kebabs. I don't think there's any such thing as a bad kebab. This is what? How much does one of these creations cost you?
This will come to £29.90.
£29, yeah. And that's at a restaurant. It's not a takeaway. Where's your restaurant? And then tell us, what do you put into this? What makes the perfect kebab?
Well, there's a lot that goes into it. We're based in North London, in Cockfosters area. Yeah. So we're trading under Skewed Kitchen. And so this is my personal 5th award as Chef of the Year on the British Kebab Awards. It's the 13th one we just had last night. The restaurant's won the award 3 times itself as well. What goes into a kebab? Oh, a lot of hard work, a lot of grafting, because what we do, from the source, we try to have full control over the product until we execute it. Yeah. So we get it, we butcher it in-house, so we start at 2 a.m. You know, we get the meat delivery, let it rest on the bone, debone it, marinate it in these 48 hours, and then it hits the fire.
I'm going to get a little... I'm going to carve some bit off here if you don't mind, mate. Right, so I'm going to take a little bit here. Tell us, you probably won't tell us, what's the secret spice recipe?
Secret spice recipe, we've got our own marinade, yes. But generally, it's your pepper paste, your oils, your herbs, traditional herbs.
That is a cube of lamb, and it's like beautifully pink and red. Can you see? That is phenomenal.
Thank you so much. So we use a sort of special part of the lamb, which is called the middle neck part of lamb. So that's sort of between the neck and the actual lamb chop. And
it's so tender.
That's the bit of the lamb that's actually got the best marbling on there, and that's why it's so tender. And obviously the marination process is very, very important.
Sorry, keep talking, I'm eating.
Yes. So what we have here, so we've got the lamb, again, homemade bread. We have control over, like I said, our product from the onset. And we've got the smashed eggplant, which is the yellowy stuff that you're seeing, and we've got, that's a very lengthy process. We char the aubergines, we blitz them. There's about 20% of the skin that we put in as well to retain the flavour. Then there's hung yoghurt there. And there's sumac there. There's quite a lot going on.
I thought we've got to go, but I'm going to scoff all of that in the next break. Thank you very much. We're going to Washington, D.C. next to meet the President, but this is the President of Kebabs, the King of Kebabs. Thank you very, very much for joining us. There we are. We'll be live next from the White House as Keir Starmer meets Donald Trump.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers that have been prevailing across northwestern and eastern parts through the day will tend to ease during the rest of the day, and we'll see widespread clear skies overnight as a ridge of high pressure moves in. That's going to nudge this low out of the way. That means the showers that we've seen in East Anglia will tend to clear off. And the showers across northwestern parts will also fade, but we'll still see 1 or 2 downpours across the north and west of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland overnight. But away from these areas, widely clear skies, 1 or 2 mist patches first thing, most especially parts of the Midlands, northwest England, and a widespread frost. Temperatures down to -2 generally, and in some sheltered spots -3 to -4 or 5. But despite the chill, actually a beautiful start to Friday. Plenty of sunshine first thing, and we've just got that mist across parts of the Midlands into northwest England, and that's going to clear through the first few hours of daylight. Northern Ireland, plenty of sunshine. Parts of Scotland still seeing 1 or 2 showers, especially Shetland and the Western Isles, but well, they'll tend to ease through the day as well. So for most, it is a dry day. It's a bright day as well once any early mist has cleared. Sunny spells and long spells of sunshine across some central and southern parts of the country. I think the cloud will tend to build once again across Western Scotland, Northern Ireland. The breeze will pick up, but out of the breeze, in the sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed, highs of 9 or 10 Celsius. Now, Friday evening sees the cloud clear once again across much of England and Wales, perhaps eastern Scotland, but I think thicker cloud starts to move in across the west of Scotland and Northern Ireland. That will keep things frost-free here as we start the weekend. Some outbreaks of rain turning up as well. Otherwise, it's a cold start to the weekend, but plenty of sunshine to come.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
In Hertfordshire, the M25 is queuing clockwise after a collision near junction 19 at Watford, with queues back to junction 17 at Maple Cross. In Berkshire, the M4 westbound is partly blocked for repairs. That's after a vehicle fire earlier between junction 13 at Newbury and junction 14 for Hungerford and the A338. In Essex, the M25 clockwise is queuing after a breakdown on the QE2 bridge, with queues back to junction 30 at Lakeside. And in Surrey, the M25 clockwise is partly blocked after a collision. It's between junction 10 for the A3 at Wisley and junction 11 for Chertsey and the A320.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. Now, it's just moments away now until Sir Keir Starmer meets Donald Trump, the US President, at the White House. Live pictures on your screen there. We have photo bombed by a security guard. Chris Hope, our political editor, has just got through the full security at the White House. The full military regalia is being rolled out. Armed forces expected to greet the Prime Minister. The PM is expected to talk tough on Ukraine, but with Trump holding all the cards on Ukraine, on trade, on tariffs, on the Chagos Islands, on free speech, on net zero, in fact, on absolutely everything. Can Sir Keir Starmer really come away with anything more than a bag of duty-frees from America? And guardian angel Dublin residents are set to take to the streets of Dublin this evening in response to what they believe is spiralling street crime that they say is being driven by immigrants. I'll be joined by an Irish political leader who says it's time to make Ireland safe again. And that's all coming in your next hour. Well, it's a show, pleasure to have your company. It's an historic moment when Keir Starmer will be greeted to the White House by US President Donald J. Trump, a man not exactly high on the Christmas card list of many of the Labour cabinet. Don't forget, called a fascist, a white supremacist, a sexist, a misogynist, and many, many much nicer things by a lot of people in the Labour Party top echelons. The special relationship perhaps being tested to the limit. Being talked about today, of course, is Ukraine's Keir Starmer following Emmanuel Macron. Never a good look, is it, to follow the French. Expected to want concessions on Ukraine, but having seen the cabinet meeting yesterday where Donald Trump introduced his top team, doesn't seem to me like this president is in the mood for concessions. In fact, he said, "We are the nation that holds the pot of gold. Anybody who defies us, we will go cold turkey on them and we will not buy anything from them." Trump holds all the cards. Can Keir Starmer come back with anything from the White House for the United Kingdom? We'll have the full detail on that throughout the rest of this hour, building towards that historic press conference around about 7 p.m. later this evening. Get in touch the usual way, it's gbnews.com/your say. But now it's your headlines, and here's Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. It's just gone 5 o'clock. Your top stories this hour. The Prime Minister is about to meet with Donald Trump for their first White House talks, with support for Ukraine and defence set to dominate discussions. Speaking to reporters last night, Sir Keir Starmer dismissed growing tensions between the US and Europe, insisting the special relationship must go from strength to strength. It comes after US President Donald Trump said it's up to Europe to provide security guarantees for Ukraine, and there will be no guarantees of Washington's involvement. Ukraine's President Zelensky is due to meet with the US President to sign a deal tomorrow. Back in the UK, former Labour MP Mike Amesbury will walk free after winning an appeal against his 10-week jail sentence for punching a man in the street. Mr Amesbury had appealed his 10-week prison sentence at Chester Crown Court today for punching a man to the ground. He pleaded guilty last month to assaulting 45-year-old Paul Fellows following a row in a street in Cheshire in October of last year. He's been ordered to carry out 200 hours of unpaid work, undertake alcohol monitoring, an anger management course, and carry out 20 days of rehabilitation work. In other news, the number of people claiming asylum in the UK has reached its highest level since records began in 1979. That's according to figures released by the Home Office today. Just over 108,000 people applied for asylum in the UK in 2024, the highest number for any 12-month period since current records began in 2001. The number is up 18% from almost 92,000 in 2023. Migrants who arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in small boats accounted for 32% of the total number of people claiming asylum last year. Pakistani was the most common nationality among asylum applicants. Home Office Minister Dame Angela Eagle says the government are cracking down on asylum applications. However, Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp blamed the Labour government for the situation getting worse.
These figures have got considerably worse since Labour came into government. They said they would end hotel use, but in fact the number of illegal immigrants in hotels has gone up by 10,000 under this Labour government. They claimed they'd clear the asylum backlog. That's gone up as well. The number of people crossing the Channel illegally by small boat has gone up by 28% under this Labour government. What is clear is that the whole immigration system is getting worse and worse thanks to the misguided policies that the Labour government is pursuing. It's happened on their watch. It's getting worse.
Elsewhere, Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan have arrived in Florida after Romania lifted their travel ban. The controversial brothers also said some of their seized assets have now been returned to them by Romanian authorities, including properties and vehicles. The Trump administration reportedly pressed the Romanian government to lift travel restrictions on the brothers earlier this month. The controversial influencer and his sibling are facing a series of criminal charges in the country, which they both strongly deny. And Gene Hackman's daughter, Elizabeth, thinks her father and his wife died from carbon monoxide poisoning. The Hollywood actor was found dead alongside his wife, Betsy Arakawa, at their home. A warning: the following contains flashing images. Police in Santa Fe say they were found at their home in New Mexico alongside their dog, adding there were no signs of foul play. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Martin.
Thank you, Sophia. Now, Keir Starmer will arrive to meet Donald Trump at the White House imminently. The Prime Minister is expected to talk tough on Ukraine, the pressing issue of the time for the Labour Party. We have live pictures on your screens there. That is the entrance to that world-famous White House. We saw a short while ago the full military reception turning up, servicemen and women with flags from all regiments. Certainly looks like Sir Keir Starmer will get the full bells and whistles for this historic meeting of political opponents, you might say, quite divergent on their political spectrum. But the Prime Minister is, of course, expected to talk tough on Ukraine, as Emmanuel Macron did before him. But with Trump holding all of the cards, especially on Ukraine, let's not forget, nobody else is even at that table doing the deal with Vladimir Putin, who last night in an astonishing press conference, Donald Trump called Putin very cunning and very smart. Trump holds the cards on Ukraine, on Russia, on that war. He holds the cards on trade, on tariffs, and of course on the Chagos Islands, something else that the US president could sink. But despite all of that, can Keir Starmer come back to Britain with anything other than a bag of duty-free? Well, joining me now in the studio is the Labour MP for Dover and Deal, Mike Tapp. Mike, welcome to the show. We have those scenes on the screen there. Your leader, Keir Starmer, is out representing Britain. And, of course, we're expecting top of the agenda to be Ukraine. Now, Keir Starmer talking tough on that, wanting some kind of shadow, some kind of backstop, some kind of guarantee. But let's be honest, what cards does Keir Starmer hold?
Well, these are pivotal times for Britain, for Europe, for the whole world, actually, in terms of security. And look, the steps we've taken this week are really important in terms of what Donald Trump has been calling for by increasing our defence spending to 2.5% with a target of 3%, having to make some difficult decisions to get there. And what we're doing there is we're showing that leadership in Europe and hope that others follow suit. And look, Donald Trump's been quite right in some of the things he's said, particularly around Europe needing to rely less on US military support. And this is the beginning of that. And I think Donald Trump will like that we're listening to him. And this is where it's a test of Keir's diplomacy. But he is a statesman. He is a great leader, and he's got diplomatic skills too. So it remains to be seen, of course, what comes out of this meeting. But I'm feeling hopeful and positive at the moment.
Do you think, really, though, that Donald Trump is in the mood to go into receiving mode from any Western leader? Emmanuel Macron made similar demands and they were battered away. Yesterday in that cabinet meeting, as I said, he said the United States holds the pot of gold. We will go cold turkey on any country that defies us. Of course, he holds the whip hand on tariffs. He holds the whip hand on energy supply, on security supply. Let's be absolutely brutal. So Keir Starmer can't hold any leverage of real power in this meeting now. Donald Trump's going to say jump, and Keir Starmer's going to have to say, whether he likes it or not, how high?
Well, look, we have got that £3 billion worth of trade with the United States, which is vital for them as well. We've got that special relationship that runs deep beyond leaders with military work, the way we've worked together over decades, our intelligence sharing, trade, also those important cultural ties. So, we're not France, we are the United Kingdom. We're a strong country. We have led on the global stage over many decades, perhaps not so much over the last decade. And I think Donald Trump will respect that. And I think he'll respect Keir Starmer's statesman-like approach to these talks that we're going to see today.
Do you think Sir Keir Starmer, let's be honest, he led the People's Vote movement to reverse Brexit for 3 years, and yet now the United Kingdom finds itself in the enviable position, certainly if you're from Brussels, of dodging trade tariffs slapped on Brussels yesterday. So the European Union was trying to screw the United States. The entire thing was set up. An opportunity exists, Mike Tapp, for a forward-thinking, progressive, truly friend of America to do a bespoke trade deal. But that won't happen in a month of Sundays with Keir Starmer in charge. He's too in love with Brussels.
I think, Keir's actually been really clear that that special relationship isn't an either-or with the the European Union.
But it might be for Trump.
And that's important because there isn't a choice that needs to be made there. And Trump has said very clearly that the EU and European nations need to rely less on the United States. And we're leading on that. So I'm no doubt that Donald Trump will see the value in the United Kingdom's sort of honest broker approach to ensuring that we've got that special relationship with Donald Trump and his administration, but also with the Europeans. Because, look, there's a threat from Russia on our doorstep.
That sounds like you want to have your cake and eat it.
Not at all.
You want to stay cozying up to Brussels,
no.
A regime that's just been slapped with tariffs by Donald Trump. We can't do a bespoke deal with the EU without enraging Donald Trump.
This doesn't have to be either or, and it certainly doesn't have to be soundbite politics. This is about what's best for the United Kingdom and what's best for Europe, and that's defending our borders from an aggressor in Russia. And to do that, it's right that we raise our defence spending, as we've seen this week, and that we work with Europe to ensure that we're secure and safe. And, of course, work with the United States, because that security backstop will be important. We do rely on the US for things like satellite support for a lot of our weaponry. So, across the board, these relationships are all very important.
You talk about defending a border in Ukraine. We can't even defend our own border here. Record asylum figures out today. It's doubled since 2021. 108,000 people coming, 43,000 people came over on boats, and that figure is getting worse under the Labour Party. Why should we care about defending the border in Ukraine when we can't defend our own coastal border?
Well, I'm a big advocate for securing the border, as is Angela Eagle, Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer. It's one of our top priorities.
When's that going to start?
I've just come from the committee bill stage for the asylum and immigration bill. It's going to take time to get that through into legislation. It has to go to the Lords after that. I want to see...
Well, the Lords won't clamp down on immigration.
It'll come back. Don't worry.
They're trying to stop Brexit.
This will go into law, and that will help our Border Security Command, National Crime Agency, bring in the security services and MI5 to take out the smuggling gangs. But also, we've increased deportations by 25% in a very short period of time. That's 9,000 deportations.
But those people are going voluntarily. They're being paid. A lot of them are Brazilian Deliveroo drivers being paid £1,000 to clear off. They'll probably be back next week.
The fact is, the whole system had ground to a halt. We weren't deporting. 4 went to Rwanda. Labour have come into government. We've got that system working again. We're processing those that have arrived so that we can deport those that shouldn't be here and, of course, help those that are genuine refugees. But, look, there isn't a magic wand. There's not one bill or bit of legislation that's going to fix this. It's going to take time. But once the bill that we're putting through committee stage at the moment is in place, it will arm the National Crime Agency, who I was with today. The DG is very enthusiastic about this bill and the disruptive counter-terror measures that we can bring in to smash the criminal gangs.
OK, Mike Tabb, if you're just joining us now on GB News, we've got live pictures there from the White House. We're expecting Sir Keir Starmer and Donald Trump to emerge from those doors shortly. Our political editor, Chris Hope, is inside the unit. He's cleared somehow the security at the White House. The full military regalia is awaiting the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and the President. The regalia, the flags are being rolled out. While we await them to appear, let's talk some more about what might be on the agenda. I'm still with the Labour MP for Dover and Deal, Mike Tabb. You talk passionately about the defence of the realm, British international security. Let's talk about the Chagos Islands. David Lammy seems to be part of this great British giveaway, to give away a key strategic outpost by any reckoning. It's mad to give the Chagos Islands away. It's even more mad to pay 16 billion quid to give it away. And we found out yesterday Mr Lammy might be forced into something of a humiliating U-turn, he had to admit. The man expected to come out those doors in a minute. The president of the USA could veto the entire deal. He could say, we heard yesterday, he would not give an inch to Xi Jinping, he would not give an inch to China. Well, giving the Chagos Islands away to Mauritius would give more than an inch to China. In 99 years, China could get the whole thing.
Well, firstly, these negotiations were in round 12. They were started by the Conservatives, who have been very vocal against the deal that they started. When this went through, President Biden was in place. He supported this, and it was about security. Now, of course, if Lammy's saying that there might be some flex on that with the new White House administration, then that's not a U-turn.
A total torpedoing of the deal isn't some flex.
Then that's not a U-turn if it does happen, and if that is right. That's actually diplomacy. That's working with our international partners on security and defence and ensuring that we do what's right for everyone. So, look, no decisions have been made at the moment, but if that does happen, it's quite simple international diplomacy and leadership.
Do you think there could be something personal in this Lammy deal with Donald Trump? Let's face it, David Lammy was the most outspoken in his contempt for Donald Trump for years. He called him a white supremacist. He called him a misogynist. He called him a fascist. Now, these are not the kind of things that should be said by somebody in power, and now David Lammy finds himself as the Foreign Secretary. Might those words come back to haunt him?
Well, we've been reassured that the relationship between our administration and Trump's is very strong. There's been a number of meetings where these things have most likely been spoken about, and people seem happy. Look, Donald Trump has said that he likes Keir Starmer, and going forward, we'll see a strong relationship that will benefit us here in this country.
The terms of Ukraine is something which both political parties, Conservatives, in fact, and the Liberal Democrats, seem to be united that there can't be concessions to Putin. We can't give away parts of Ukraine. There has to be a deal with Zelensky around the table. But again, Donald Trump's not listening. He said last night, he will deal direct with Putin. 3 years in, no signs of any peace deal. All the tough talking by European leaders like Sir Keir Starmer, like Rishi Sunak before him, came to nothing. Putin wasn't listening. Now Trump's here. It seems that Putin is listening, but that listening will carry on without people like Sir Keir Starmer even in the room.
Donald Trump is right that we should be striving for peace and security. He's right that the EU should be standing on its own 2 feet and not relying so much on the United States. Keir Starmer's been really clear that Zelensky isn't a dictator, because he's not, and that he should be at the table because it's his country. He is the leader.
But he's not at the table. Zelensky's not at the table. He's turning up tomorrow at the same place here to do a minerals deal with Donald Trump, which is expected to be carving up the assets of Ukraine to help pay for the war.
I think the fact that he's meeting him this week suggests that he is at the table, and I'm sure Keir Starmer and Donald Trump will have productive conversations today.
OK, so you're optimistic you'll get something positive out of this. You're optimistic that this special relationship can endure. Let's face it, two very political beasts, different political beasts.
They are different. Keir Starmer is a talented man, and he's shown what a leader is. And let's go back a few years. Let's look what he did to the Labour Party. He completely changed the Labour Party, got rid of Jeremy Corbyn, he kicked out the anti-Semites. He got us into a position that could win an election in a very short period of time. No one thought he could do that. And that's because he's ruthless when he needs to be, because he's a true leader. But he's also, he's strong, but he's decent. And without that decency, that strength is weakness, essentially. And we know Keir Starmer doesn't have that. And that's what he's going to take forward now as leader of our great country. We've seen that this week on defence spending. And I've no doubt he'll have some successes today with Donald Trump.
Can I just ask you about your strange adoption, perhaps, of reforms policy, halving foreign aid to fund defence boosts, straight from the Nigel Farage playbook? Christopher Hope put it to Keir Starmer in person. Are you Nigel Farage in disguise?
The Conservatives are saying this as well, aren't they? No, we were not considering what Reform or the Conservatives were saying when we made this decision. The reason Keir Starmer's increased defence spending is because we do need to rely less on the United States, and there is a threat from Russia. And Keir was very clear that Farage spends more of his time fawning over Putin. We won't get that from Keir Starmer because he embraces British values, he loves this country, and that's why he's standing up for it.
OK, Mike Tapp, thank you very much for joining us today. And we have those live pictures on your screen. If you're just joining us, that is there, the White House. We're expecting to see Donald Trump, the new President of the United States of America, and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, coming out there shortly to address the world's press, getting the full VIP treatment. And later on, about 7 p.m, of course, we'll cover it live on GB News. We will have the full press statement where the two leaders address the world together for the first time. And let's move on now. Bring in my next guest. I'm joined by the journalist, Dr. Azim Ibrahim, OBE. Dr. Ibrahim, welcome to the show. What are you expecting to come out of this meeting today?
I think it's going to be a really tough sell for Keir Starmer to sell what he's trying to sell to the president here in the White House. Essentially, Europe just does not matter anymore to President Trump. The entire administration's focus is pivoting to China, which they see as a peer competitor. And they have seen the war in Ukraine drag on between Russia and Ukraine for 3 years now. And from his point of view, this has been mismanaged by the Europeans. This is why he's reluctant to have Zelensky at the table, and he's reluctant to see any interference from the Europeans. So Starmer's pushing for Zelensky to have a seat at the table. Trump may interpret this as simple another European leader trying to sabotage his peace deal and trying to interfere. So it's a really tough sell for Starmer at this point.
OK, Azim, just want to point out to viewers there, the cameraman was polishing the lens there, making it absolutely clear we have now the standard bearers in place either side of that world-famous door at the White House. He's adjusting his focus. We're expecting the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer of the United Kingdom, and Donald J. Trump to emerge from there shortly. Until that moment, Azim, does this underline the impotence, the absolute impotence now of not just Keir Starmer, but every European leader? Macron puffing up his chest, talking tough on Ukraine. It's not very likely that Donald Trump is in receiving mode. You may have seen that astonishing press conference last night with the cabinet for the first time. And they were, I believe, absolutely America first. They seem focused on the end point of that negotiation with Vladimir Putin. They seem focused on free speech. They seem focused on trade tariffs. They seem focused on America being primary and reigning supreme. Do they care anything at all about what Keir Starmer thinks?
They care very little of any European leader, to be frank. As I mentioned, they say that this is a European problem. The Europeans have mismanaged it over a number of years. This has gone on for too long. Very similar, if you remember, Martin, to the war in Bosnia, which is also one of the worst genocides since the Second World War, happening on European soil. The Europeans completely mismanaged that as well until the Americans, under Bill Clinton at that time, had to intervene and put an end to it. And this is a similar kind of situation in the American psyche. Europeans are unable to take care of their own defence, and they have mismanaged this. They have been free riders hanging off the American coattails, building up their economies with buying cheap Russian gas, whilst at the same time relying on the Americans to cover their defence necessities. And so from the American perspective, it is about time that the Europeans stepped up and just essentially just took care of their own defence without the Americans. And the fact that Starmer, mentioned about having British peacekeepers on the ground, along with French in Ukraine in any post-war settlement, this is essentially a pipe dream unless the Americans are on board. Even if the Americans, President Trump or the Russians, which are highly unlikely to give it the green light, even if they were to give it the green light, if the Americans are not actually involved, this will simply not work. The British, the French, the Europeans have no air capabilities, air defence, targeting capabilities. All of that is completely outsourced to the Americans. So any troops on the ground will actually be exponentially more serious and more difficult than even Iraq or Afghanistan. So none of this will happen, and the Americans are fully on board, and I don't suspect that Putin will ever agree to such a deal. So I don't suspect this will go very far, to be honest.
And Azim, we were just informed there by the White House. We were given a 5-minute warning while you were speaking there. So around about 4 minutes' time now, I think we're expecting Presidents Trump and Keir Starmer to emerge from that door to address the world together for the first time. While I have you here, can I ask you about the Chagos Islands? The Chagos Islands is something which Donald Trump could literally torpedo the entire deal. Has a veto on that, and probably a certain Nigel Farage may have been whispering into the presidency. This is something to push back on. And yesterday, again, I pointed out to Mike Tapp in the studio that Trump was resolute on not giving an inch to China, well, giving away the Chagos Islands to Mauritius for 99 years, and then China. What's 99 years to China? They'll hang around and hoover it up. Might I point out to you, Azim, do you think that there's a possibility the Chagos Islands idea might get completely torpedoed by Trump?
If the Chagos Island deal is on Trump's radar, then I'm absolutely certain he will simply torpedo it. This deal simply makes no sense whatsoever. I was in Washington just last week where I met with various officials, think tankers and officials from the State Department and other government agencies. This does not make any sense to them whatsoever in terms of why this is happening. And if it appears on Trump's radar and if it's brought up, then I suspect that he will simply torpedo this. This is a very, very bad deal, and it's seen as complete capitulation by Starmer to the Mauritians and to the Chinese. And you're absolutely right. It's only a question of time before the Chinese will step in. They're expanding their spheres of influence at an accelerated rate. So it's only a question of time before this comes under Chinese control. So I suspect that Trump would probably torpedo this if he could do so.
OK, thank you very much for that. Can I bring Mike Tapp back in now? Mike's still with me in the studio. What do you offer a billionaire who's a president, who's got everything? Perhaps a royal visit, a state visit, a bit of soft bribery might work. We know Donald Trump likes pomp and ceremony. We know he loves the royal family. Might that be an ace up the sleeve of Keir Starmer today?
I think we've already said that we're lining up a trip to Balmoral. And look, Trump loves this country. And he loves the pomp and ceremony, as do I, by the way. It's a nice way of demonstrating those British values we love so much. And, I think it might well help soften the deal with Donald Trump, yeah.
So you think that could be on the radar today, Donald Trump getting a full state visit? And I wonder, actually, because the last time Donald Trump came to Britain, David Lammy turned up to protest against it.
Well, look, things have changed. The world moves on.
Well, things have changed.
Politics moves fast, right?
Things have changed because David Lammy's had to swallow his student union politics, and now he's got a proper job, and he's having to admit perhaps he made mistakes.
It's funny with politicians. You can always look back and find something that in 5, 6, 7 years they might not have wanted to say, and that I think is a part of the fact that politics does move fast. The world moves fast. I mean, the last 2 weeks has been a real change for global security, and we don't know where we're going to be in the next 2 weeks.
Has there been pushback from within the Labour Party, the left of the Labour Party? We're around about a minute away now, just been told, of the two leaders emerging from that famous door. Has there been any pushback on slashing foreign aid? I mean, let's face it, within the Labour Party until very recently, this was the far-right policy.
We're a united party on this, and you saw that behind Keir when he made the announcement, with MPs enthusiastic about what we're doing here. But with that touch of sadness, because no one wanted to cut foreign aid spending, of course, because we are global leaders and we want to help people. But when we have to decide between European, British, global security and making that money, we made the decision. It's the right decision.
A lot of people actually did want to cut foreign aid. A lot of people would maybe like to cut it a lot more, perhaps even some of your own constituents down in Doe. A lot of people feel that the Great British Giveaway should stop. In fact, we found out today that of the new total foreign aid budget of $9.2 billion, $4.2 billion of that, Mike Tapp, will go on housing asylum seekers in Britain. The foreign aid actually is being spent on foreigners in Britain. It's an astonishing situation.
Look, I've worked in international affairs in the past. The soft power that foreign aid brings is significant for us to be global leaders.
Half of it's paying for foreigners in Britain.
And this is another issue in that we are working hard to secure the border. We have inherited open borders and we're working hard to get there. it will take time. But that soft power is at the heart of our values, you know? We're not going to stand alone. We've led as a nation for decades. You know, we are the nation of the Industrial Revolution, which set the globe where it is now, right? We are leaders. And what we won't do is shrink away from that, ever. Of course, we've had to slash that funding to ensure that we can defend ourselves if we need to in the future. It is the right decision, but certainly a difficult one to make.
You mentioned the Industrial Revolution, a time when Britain was sovereign in its energy needs, a time when Britain didn't rely on imports, and certainly we now can't rely on net zero energy. We can't rely on wind turbines. We can't rely on solar energy. Perhaps one of the topics on the conversation today will be drill, baby, drill. You know, Donald Trump has said Britain shouldn't rely on windmills.
It's finding balance, isn't it? And look, with reliable, renewable energy, and I'm not an expert in this field, but it is about using lots of different methods to ensure that we have enough energy. But there could be a second industrial revolution here, which is green, because we can create thousands of jobs from this project that we're pushing forward.
When?
And if we set that, then the rest of the world will follow. And you'll see in a decade that, again, the United Kingdom led the way, and that's what Keir Starmer's doing.
So we've got to wait for a decade for these green jobs. We've got to wait for a decade, perhaps, for our bills to go down. We were promised bill cuts by the Labour Party, clean, green energy. We were promised 300 quid a year off our bills. We've had 3 rises on our bills since the Labour Party's come into power.
Look, when I say a decade, the reason I say a decade is because at that point you can see the full effect of this. But of course we're working hard to bring energy bills down. You know, that renewable energy will be really important. The new warm homes deal as well will help people. So we're doing a lot across the board. There's a lot for us to do. It's only 7 months in of a 5-year term. So let's see where we're at the end.
OK, well, we're still waiting for those 2 leaders. I believe the phrase is fashionably late now, but look, it's Donald Trump. He can be late to his own party if he wants to. We're expecting the 2 leaders. We were given the 1-minute warning a few minutes ago. That is, of course, that world-famous entrance there at the White House. Inside, Sir Keir Starmer, the United Kingdom's Prime Minister, is currently with Donald Trump, the US President. They're just waiting to come out and face the world. The flag bearers are there. We are seeing now movement. Looks like US Marines coming out. This is normally the precursor to the emergence of the leaders. As we wait for that, let's quickly get another final comment, if we could, from Mike Tapp. Mike, the special relationship seems to be on life support.
No. Look, we've got a deep and enduring relationship with the United States for decades, and through many leaders from different sides of the party.
That is now. Donald Trump has just emerged. You can see that trademark hairstyle emerging before he himself came. Donald Trump is now lined up. No doubt Sir Keir Starmer will be alongside him. They're literally in the doorway waiting to emerge. The leader of the free world, Donald J. Trump, US President, waiting to come out. Here comes now the vehicle. Is this called the Beast? This is the Beast, the vehicle. Let's see, is this the Prime Minister emerging from within? It is. There we go. Sir Keir Starmer has emerged from that Chevrolet, magnificent vehicle, bomb-proof, bulletproof, and that is Donald Trump with Sir Keir Starmer.
Prime Minister, will you get a backstop, will you?
Okay, so there we go. Donald Trump came out of the White House, received our Prime Minister. Sir Keir Starmer dropped off in that magnificent Chevrolet, as I said, fully bomb-proof, fully bulletproof, been dropped off. And I believe now they are going in for this historic meeting. That was the drop-off point. Sir Keir Starmer has now gone into the White House, and this much-anticipated meeting will now commence for around about the next hour and a half. The 2 leaders expected to share conversations on a huge range of topics, from Ukraine to trade tariffs, was that David Lammy there, the Foreign Secretary?
Mandelson, I think, isn't it?
And Peter Mandelson, the trade envoy, going in, the ambassador. So that's the 3 members of the top team of the United Kingdom now inside. This meeting will now commence for the next hour and a half, and we will expect a full press conference from Sir Keir Starmer and Donald Trump around about 7 p.m. They're either walking very fast to and fro there, or we had a freeze frame. So, as I said, they are now inside. for the next hour and a half. Mike Tabb. So this was the moment, just replaying that moment earlier. This is the beast dropping off Sir Keir Starmer. What do you think is going through your leader's mind now?
I wish I was a body language expert, Martin. There's not much we can take from that other than a nice warm reception, and it just makes me very proud to see that lovely flag waving there for Great Britain.
Yeah, I mean, it always does bring a special moment, does it not? When you see the United Kingdom flag, the Union flag, alongside the US flag. Never forget our bond of history, our shared valiance in wars across the end. I wonder if that will be weighing on the mind of Sir Keir Starmer. I wonder if he gets that historic bond between these two nations. I wonder if that special relationship can survive, or is there a feeling within the left of politics now that actually the supremacy of America is something to be hated?
Absolutely not, no. The special relationship is very important. It always has been, and it always will be. And there is no chance that that's been rejected. In fact, it's been embraced by Keir Starmer, as you can see with his approach, actually.
Okay, I think we're just getting ready to line up Nigel Farage to join us in a moment to give us his thoughts on this historic meeting. And, of course, there is a Reform meeting tonight in Hull. The Reform Party are set to announce their mayoral candidate. But back to, while we're waiting for Mr Farage to come up, Mike Tabb, the weight of the world is on Sir Keir Starmer's shoulders, particularly on Ukraine. Can he actually come up with anything? A lot of people think that this looks great, it's good optics, it seems like, that the United Kingdom has power. Same with Emmanuel Macron yesterday, but in actual fact, Donald Trump is the leader of the world now, and he doesn't really need people like Sir Keir Starmer.
No, not at all. The United States does need Europe in terms of defence, because we are on the border with Russia, Europe. So that relationship's really important. And what we saw this week with that increase in defence spending goes a long way to showing Donald Trump, before this meeting, how serious we are about defending Europe and defending Britain. And he will receive that well, I've no doubt.
OK, it's going to cross now. I believe we have Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate speaking in America, which just landed. Yeah, the two Tate brothers have landed on a private jet from Romania. Of course, they were wanted for a long time. Their passports have been seized. They're, of course, dual nationals, the brothers of United Kingdom and United States. They've been given the right to leave the country for some time. Of course, they were wanted. They were under arrest for rape and for human trafficking charges momentarily. Their passports were rescinded to them, and they've left the country on a private jet. They've landed in America. Let's now go to Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK. He joins me on the show to get some reaction from Sir Keir Starmer meeting Donald Trump. Nigel Farage, Sir Keir Starmer just walked into the White House. What do you think he can expect?
Well, I have to say Starmer appeared to be in quite good form at the dispatch box yesterday. He told a very good joke at the British Embassy party last night, so I think he's going in with a bit of confidence. The discussions around Ukraine, well, it's all going to be about security guarantees. Obviously, Trump's going to say, well, we're going to have massive investments in Ukraine, and we're going to want to protect those investments. But, quite where that goes, I don't know. But maybe a bit better than people think. I suspect where the difficulty is going to be is over our trading relationship with America. Not just can we be exempted from the tariffs that are due to come in on the 2nd of April, but more broadly, it was the announcement, in the last couple of weeks that we're now going to align with EU food standards under the purview of the European Court of Justice. That actually makes heading forward from here a free trade deal with the USA now really quite difficult. So, I'm sure some things will go well, some less well. And on Chagos, well, we'll just have to see. Certainly, the Americans that I've spoken to think that Diego Garcia is their most important base in the world outside the American mainland. And if they perceive any threat to that, then there may well be a change of government policy.
and Nigel Farage yesterday. David Lammy appeared to be softening himself up, perhaps, for the blow of having to do a U-turn on Chagos, admitting that Donald Trump could veto that. And you certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons in the Commons last night ahead of that Chagos vote, where you said, actually, if we're going to do the Great British Giveaway and give the island away to Mauritius and lose £16 billion in the process, why not sell the Chagos Islands to Donald Trump?
Yeah, can we stop this 16, 18 billion pound nonsense? You know, if it's 90 million a year for 99 years and it's inflation linked, compounding 3% inflation over 99 years on 90 million a year is 52 billion. But the trouble is no one can do arithmetic anymore, but never mind. I want us to keep the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands. I actually think there are many good reasons why, one of which is us letting the Americans use Diego Garcia is one of the most important things that we give as part of the special relationship for them to protect us. But if this government does come out of this summit and decide, no, we are going to listen to a court, the ICJ, even though it's got no validity, rather than give it to corrupt Mauritius and pay 50 billion quid for doing so, why not send it to America?
Nigel Farage, you're close to Donald Trump. You know how he operates. How do you think Sir Keir Starmer's very different personality to yours, more of a purse-lipped lawyer, hasn't got the common touch? How do you think that Donald Trump will receive him and respond to that? Do you think he'll completely dominate him?
Well, you know, we'd all like to be a fly on the wall, wouldn't we, for these conversations? What I do know about Trump is it's a very, very quick-fire, bang, 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 bang conversation. And so I hope that the British Prime Minister isn't too studious in terms of his responses and in terms of his questions. Look, they're enormously different people in behavioural traits, in political thinking. They are miles apart. The one thing the British Prime Minister does have going for him is that there's no question that Donald Trump does have a very big soft spot for the UK.
You think a royal visit might be a nice bit of soft power, a nice bribe? We know how much he adored meeting the Queen. Maybe an offer of meeting King Charles might help smooth matters over between the two countries.
Well, yeah, we're told that a state visit will happen and that an address in Westminster Hall before both of the Houses of Parliament will happen, and that, of course, would also include a visit to Buckingham Palace. And, yeah, Donald Trump is he's kind of obsessed with the British royal family. He just loves talking about it.
Nigel, as I have you here, could I get some reaction to you from today's astonishing immigration figures? Asylum, again, absolutely through the roof. We've seen the figures now double from 2021 until 2024. 110,000 people claimed asylum in the UK last year. Are we completely out of control once again on our borders?
Yeah, asylum claims up another 20%. That trend keeps going year on year. Do you know the really shocking thing, though? The really shocking thing is that only 32% of those that are claiming asylum crossed the English Channel in small boats. There were 34,000 of that number. And the rest are coming in illegally, the rest are coming in on visas and overstaying. I mean, everybody's able to drive a coach and horses through our system. And it's perfectly clear how the Labour government intends to deal with the asylum backlog, which is pretty much to let everyone stay.
Nigel Farage, you're in Hull this evening. There's a reform rally up there. I believe you're about to announce the mayoral candidate for the area. Can I ask you, have you faced any hostility today? We saw in Cornwall earlier this week masked thugs awaiting Reform UK members as they arrived. You were forced to write to the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, about what you believe is an increasingly intimidatory atmosphere towards reform from the hard left and Antifa.
Yeah, I mean, free speech is very, very important. There are many people questioning what's happening in Britain today, but part of that, you know, is the right of free assembly, the ability of people to attend political events, and it was very difficult to continue with that meeting on Monday. There was violence, there was unpleasantness, somebody had a tooth knocked out, people were there wearing balaclavas and masks, and yet not a single arrest was made, and frankly, Devon and Cornwall police failed completely and utterly in their duty. I have to say that the authorities here in Hull have been more than helpful, and whilst there will be a protest, it'll be a protest from a protest area as opposed to blocking the entrance to members of the public trying to get into a meeting. But I think that we need to speak to all the police forces around England, because I should basically be spending the whole of April on the road, day after day, travelling around the country. And look, I don't mind people shouting obscenities. I mean, that's absolutely fine. I'm used to that. But when it comes to preventing, free political meetings taking place, that is unacceptable. And we do need the police across the country to cooperate with that. And I've not heard back from the Home Secretary to my letter, but I did point out to her that the Labour Mayor of Camborne, up until 2024, was there with those protesters.
Astonishing stuff. Nigel Farage, can you tell us, you're in Hull, as I said tonight, you're announcing the Reform Party's mayoral candidate for the forthcoming elections. What are people in the Hull area telling you about the mood on the ground? What do they want to see changing in the country?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, Hull, there is some manufacturing in Hull. There are some jobs in Hull, but nowhere near enough. And I think our policy is to get energy prices down as cheap as we possibly can, way away from this absolutely crazy subsidy regime, which has driven them so high. We want to reindustrialise Britain. We can't see the point of importing things if we could make them here ourselves. And we're announcing our mayoral candidate for Hull and East Yorkshire. And it's a young, vibrant, very popular candidate, never been in politics before. It's going to surprise people, and we've got well over 2,000 people who've paid their money to come along tonight. So it's, for us, another big step on the road to the May the 1st elections.
Yeah, I know somebody young and somebody vibrant, somebody from Hull. It's Michelle Dewberry. It's not her, because she's doing her show after this one. Nigel Farage, thank you very much for joining us. And, of course, we'll be tuning back in to catch you later on Farage Tonight, when, of course, I'll be covering for that. Thank you very, very much to Nigel Farage. And thank you for Mike Tapp for staying with us here in the studio. And now, moving on, if you're in search of some winter sun this year, and who can blame you? And here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Heavy outbreaks of rain affecting western parts of the Mediterranean and improving temperatures across Greece, where they have been below average over the last few days. So some heavy outbreaks of rain, some heavy showers affecting Madeira, also parts of Lisbon and parts of Gibraltar at times. As we move towards the central Mediterranean, largely settled, lots of dry weather and some sunny spells. And although temperatures are improving across Greece, there are going to be some heavy showers at times, largely dry and settled into the weekend, with the best of the temperatures across Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers that have been prevailing across northwestern and eastern parts through the day will tend to ease during the rest of the day, and we'll see widespread clear skies overnight as a ridge of high pressure moves in. That's going to nudge this low out of the way. That means the showers that we've seen in East Anglia will tend to clear off, and the showers across northwestern parts will also fade, but we'll still see one or two downpours across the north and west of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland overnight. But away from these areas, widely clear skies, one or two mist patches first thing, most especially parts of the Midlands, northwest England, and a widespread frost. Temperatures down to -2 generally, and in some sheltered spots -3 to -4 or 5. But despite the chill, actually a beautiful start to Friday. Plenty of sunshine first thing, and we've just got that mist across parts of the Midlands into northwest England. And that's going to clear through the first few hours of daylight. Northern Ireland, plenty of sunshine. Parts of Scotland still seeing one or two showers, especially Shetland and the Western Isles, but, well, they'll tend to ease through the day as well. So for most, it is a dry day. It's a bright day as well once any early mist has cleared. Sunny spells and long spells of sunshine across some central and southern parts of the country. I think the cloud will tend to build once again across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. The breeze will pick up, but out of the breeze, in the sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed, highs of 9 or 10 Celsius. Now, Friday evening sees the cloud clear once again across much of England and Wales, perhaps eastern Scotland, but I think thicker cloud starts to move in across the west of Scotland and Northern Ireland. That will keep things frost-free here as we start the weekend. Some outbreaks of rain turning up as well. Otherwise, it's a cold start to the weekend, but plenty of sunshine to come.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 6. I'm Martin Daubney here on GB News. Just a quick reminder that Donald Trump and Keir Starmer are currently meeting inside the White House. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom arrived a short while ago. They're currently inside the Oval Office, having that historic meeting. Of course, the Chagos Islands, Ukraine, many topics on the table. I'll keep you updated on that ahead of that historic press conference. We'll carry on GB News around about 7 p.m. this evening. And moving back to domestic politics, and with crime and tensions rising in Dublin, locals are taking matters into their own hands. Parents and residents have started patrolling the streets, claiming they're doing the work of the police to keep their communities safe. I'm joined now by the president of the Irish Freedom Party, Herman Kelly. Herman, welcome to the show. It's an incredible situation where locals are having to seemingly take to the streets to do the job of the police. What's going on?
The country is becoming so unsafe. In the last year, we've taken in 150,000 migrants, 33,000 asylum seekers currently resident in Ireland. And the country, look, I got a phone call there yesterday from a woman in Kingscourt, County Cavan. Two boys of 14 where there was an attempt to kidnap two schoolboys as they walked back from school. So what the woman is doing is she's had a community meeting already. She's setting up a community alert, and the parish priest is involved, the local pharmacy, the guards have been involved. It's basically parents walking with their children up to school because they are now afraid for the security of their own children. And I understand the frustrations and the fear of many people, because at the minute, it seems in Ireland, Irish people are petty last. We are not the priority. The government, in welfare, in housing, in security, so many things, Irish people come second. And if you're a foreigner, migrant, whatever, that's fine. Even in the sentencing from the courts, if they say, oh, he doesn't speak English or he's from another country, he gets a softer sentence. This is ridiculous.
OK, Herman Kelly, of course, these protests, these patrols are taking part tonight, we believe, in the park in about half an hour's time, actually, in Dublin. And, of course, nobody is suggesting that everybody from overseas is a criminal, and nobody is suggesting that these are a danger. And, of course, there has been some violence against migrants from Irish people. But this is what happens when the police don't seem to do their job. Quick 30 seconds to you, Herman.
Like, come on. In the last 2 weeks, there's been umpteen murders in Ireland. A woman was killed coming into Rosslare Port there a few days ago. This week, there was a Nigerian woman in Cork who was killed by another Nigerian. There was an African killing last week in central Dublin. And then 2 weeks ago in Stoneybatter, there was 4 Irish people knifed by a Brazilian migrant. Look, unvetted immigration does not make your country more safe.
OK, Herman Kelly, we have to leave it there. Thank you very, very much for joining us on tonight's show. Now, that's it from me for now. Don't worry, because Michelle Dewberry is up next. Dubes & Co, the fiercest debate show in town. I'll be back at 7. I'm coming in for Farrell. We'll have that live press conference from the White House. But first, here's your weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day.
Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers that have been prevailing across northwestern and eastern parts through the day will tend to ease during the rest of the day, and we'll see widespread clear skies overnight as a ridge of high pressure moves in. That's going to nudge this low out of the way. That means the showers that we've seen in East Anglia will tend to clear off, and the showers across northwestern parts will also fade, but we'll still see one or two downpours across the north and west of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland overnight. But away from these areas, widely clear skies, one or two mist patches first thing, most especially parts of the Midlands, northwest England, and a widespread frost. Temperatures down to -2 generally, and in some shelter spots -3 to -4 or 5. But despite the chill, actually a beautiful start to Friday. Plenty of sunshine first thing, and we've just got that mist across parts of the Midlands into northwest England, and that's going to clear through the first few hours of daylight. Northern Ireland, plenty of sunshine. Parts of Scotland still seeing one or two showers, especially Shetland and the Western Isles, but well, they'll tend to ease through the day as well. So for most, it is a dry day. It's a bright day as well once any early mist has cleared. Sunny spells and long spells of sunshine across some central and southern parts of the country. I think the cloud will tend to build once again across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. The breeze will pick up, but out of the breeze, in the sunshine, feeling very pleasant indeed. Highs of 9 or 10 Celsius. Now, Friday evening sees the cloud clear once again across much of England and Wales, perhaps eastern Scotland, but I think thicker cloud starts to move in across the west of Scotland and Northern Ireland. That will keep things frost-free here as we start the weekend. Some outbreaks of rain turning up as well. Otherwise, it's a cold start to the weekend, but plenty of sunshine to come.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Away from Manchester and towards Rochdale, extra slow before junction 21 at Milne Row. There's been an accident and it's across 2 lanes. So the queue caused by this, it's joined up with the regular one, top of the M60 from Prestwich. If you're travelling Stoke-on-Trent, the A500 D Road is partially blocked at the Basford roundabout. That's causing an extra 15 minutes from the Kidsgrove turn-off. Chessington, the A243 Hook Road is blocked on the northbound towards the A3 Hook Junction where there's been an accident, and there's a breakdown affecting the M25 near St Albans. Joining clockwise, it's slow into the roadworks from junction 22 to 23. Still working to repair part of the M4 Berkshire